Well, good afternoon, everybody. 7 minutes past the hour, 3 o'clock on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air as we kick off another week. This is Monday, June 26th, after a very eventful weekend in which I don't know how close we came to potential nuclear war. We may never know for years, but I'll tell you this: it's scary what we have going on here. I think I'm more frightened. I mean, in case you don't know, we had a mercenary group called the Wagner Group, which left the area of Ukraine and started making a run on Moscow. And nobody really knew what they were up to. Nobody really knew what was going on. Was it a rebellion? Was it a move against Putin? Who knows? But what concerns me perhaps more than anything about the whole situation and what we're now beginning to find out is we have, well, just think about it. You got in Russia, you got Vladimir Putin, paranoid, doesn't really have his full abilities around him. Some people say he may be sick. On our side of the equation, you've got a man who is the leader of the free world, and quite frankly, not in possession of all of his faculties. We all know that. We all see it. And then throw into the mix of this guy Prigozhin, who is apparently had some kind of designs on maybe taking on Putin and making a run on Moscow with a very powerful and well equipped mercenary organization that he heads up. Not a good situation when you consider that we're talking about two countries that possess a lot of nuclear weapons and situations that can be easily misunderstood by somebody on even their best day. We've got a president who is not having his best days. We have a Russian leader who is unpredictable and paranoid. And then we've got this going. I just don't like the fact that we have all of this very dangerous stuff happening in the world, things that could be misinterpreted, and the people who are in charge of our countries not really at the top of their game. It's worrisome. It's troublesome. Very concerning. We have heard from Vladimir Putin in the last hour or so. Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked his nation on Monday for unity after an armed rebellion over the weekend was aborted less than 24 hours after it began. Earlier in the day, the mercenary chief defended his short-lived insurrection in a boastful statement. In his first appearance since the rebellion ended, Putin also thanked most of the mercenaries for not letting the situation deteriorate into bloodshed. He said all necessary measures have been taken to protect the country and the people from rebellion. He blamed Russian enemies, and he said they miscalculated. The Kremlin also tried to project stability on Monday when authorities released a video of Russia's defense minister reviewing troops in Ukraine. So the fighting between Russia and Ukraine continues, and the most important thing it seemed that they wanted to say out of Washington today is we continue to support Ukraine and all of that, and we didn't have anything to do with this guy from the Wagner Group. So let's go through some of the sound. Here is John Kirby from the White House briefing room this afternoon. He says we're still focused on Ukraine.
We're all concerned by any potential for instability in Russia, given the stakes and given what's going on in Ukraine. And I'm not going to talk about intelligence matters one way or the other here. The rift between Mr. Prigozhin and the Wagner Group and the Russian Ministry of Defense was playing out in public for all of you to see. The tensions, the frustrations, the anger, the accusations, all played out publicly. That was no secret whatsoever. Now, what that tension does inside Russia, again, that's an internal Russian matter. What we've got to do is not get distracted by that and make sure that we're focused on supporting Ukraine.
I want to follow up on
supporting Ukraine.
I want to follow up on a different subject briefly. At the question and answer event with the President and Prime Minister Modi, our colleague Sabrina Siddiqui of the Wall Street Journal asked a question of the Prime Minister, and since that time she has been subjected to some intense online harassment from people inside India. Some of them are politicians, they have associations with the pro-Modi government, and in part they've been targeting her because of her Muslim faith and questioning her own heritage. Because this was supposed to be about democracy and in some form, wanted to find out what is the White House reaction to the fact that a journalist posing a question to a Democratic leader is getting that kind of pushback.
We're aware of the reports of that harassment. It's unacceptable, and we absolutely condemn any harassment.
All right, so John Kirby in the White House briefing room a short time ago. There was a briefing at the State Department, very active in all of this over the weekend, and Matthew Miller, who is the State Department spokesman, says what we had over the weekend and what we have going on right now is something very different.
This certainly was a new moment in if you think of the events of the last few years. As the Secretary said, 16 months ago, the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin envisioned that Russian forces would be taking Kyiv. And instead, over the weekend, we saw Russian forces taking a Russian Ministry of Defense office inside a Russian city. Yeah. We saw the entire pretext of this war being questioned openly, something we have done, something our allies and partners have done, something that you have not seen inside the borders of Russia. In fact, you can be thrown in jail for taking that step as an ordinary citizen inside of Russia. We saw Yevgeny Prigozhin directly questioning not just the Ministry of Defense officials, as he's done for some time, but really directly challenging President Putin's leadership. Those are all significant steps and a significant change from what we've seen, certainly in the last 16 months, but over a number of years. What that means going forward, we don't know.
Well, has Vladimir Putin, as you know him and as this administration knows him, tolerated this kind of insubordination, whether in the immediate future or long term? Would he tolerate this kind of challenge to his authority?
I would not ever want to speculate on how Vladimir Putin might respond to any event, certainly not an event inside Russia.
Well, not
to follow up. Kylie.
On the diplomatic efforts that were made over the weekend, did Russians respond to those messages from U.S. diplomats, Ambassador Tracy and the others?
Yeah, now what they're talking about here is that we reached out to Russian leadership to find out, because we didn't know what the hell was going on over the weekend. And you know, the question was, well, how do those conversations go? How would you characterize them?
I won't speak to the Russian response. I'll just speak to the messages that we delivered to them.
I'm not asking you to characterize them. I'm just asking you to say yes or no.
Well, it was a conversation. It wasn't a one-way. There were one-way conversations where you deliver and the other side hangs up. It was a conversation, yes.
Okay. And then one thing that the Secretary said over the weekend is that to the extent that Russia is now distracted by what's happening internally in its country, that could create an additional advantage for the Ukrainians. How exactly is the United States encouraging Ukrainians to take advantage of this moment?
So I would say that I would frame it slightly differently. We continue to supply the Ukrainians with the equipment they need to conduct the counteroffensive and to defend themselves long term. We continue to have intelligence sharing channels with the Ukrainians. We continue to have military channels. We continue to have diplomatic channels that are open with Ukraine. What the Secretary was speaking to is the fact that you did see what Wagner forces withdraw from Ukraine and instead move on a Russian city. How that shakes out, what happens in the coming days with respect to Wagner forces or other Russian military forces, I don't think we can say, but certainly we are in close consultation with Ukraine and the Ukrainian military about the ongoing counteroffensive.
More from Miller out of the State Department about Russians and the nukes.
I won't speak to any inferences. I will say that I will let the Pentagon speak to any military-to-military communications, whether it happened or not. I will say, however, as the Secretary said yesterday, we do not see any change in the disposition of Russian nuclear forces and have not changed the disposition of ours.
Is this just me, or is this like one of the most frightening things that we've heard happen in a long time? I mean, normally in a situation where you have, you're supposed to have diplomatic relations 4 times such as these, you're supposed to have relationships so you can pick up the phone and say, okay, you want to share with us what you think is going on here? Because we're not exactly sure what's going on here. I mean, this is frightening. Russia, with so many nuclear weapons, the United States, so many nuclear weapons. We're in a conflict, by proxy with Russia as the Ukrainians are doing our bidding in Ukraine with our military intelligence. And so our relationship with Russia is not the strongest right now. And then you have this thrown into the mix, a mercenary group known as the Wagner Group, which decides apparently that they're going to try to take on Putin. Was that a rebellion? Was it an attempt to overthrow the power? And where does that thing stand now? Still, I would say a lot of unanswered questions. And the concern that I have is you've got a president of the United States who's a little slow. Let's just say what it is. He's a little slow on the uptake these days. Do you feel comfortable having a president of the United States, as we've all seen him falter and fumble on the world stage, being in control right now of the nuclear football, being in control of a situation that is so delicate and could easily spiral out of control with a one single misunderstanding? You need our people at the very best of their game, and we don't have that in America today. We don't have a president at the best of his game. He's not even close to being at the best of his game. And so, it concerns me deeply that, it looks like we dodged a bullet. It looks like, cooler heads are prevailed. Look like things have calmed down a little bit, and we're starting to get some of the answers we needed. But in this kind of environment, to have a president who's not at the top of his game, who easily misunderstands things, says things that land on the ear wrong on almost every time he's in front of a microphone, I don't know, it's troubling to me, very troubling to me. Biden makes first public comments. He just basically said that they have denied any involvement in the Wagner Group rebellion. Well, that they even had to do that, makes me a little nervous. What did Putin think? I mean, if you're Putin and all of a sudden you see this group come flying out of Ukraine and headed toward Moscow, and you don't know what their intentions are, what are the things that you might come up with? What are the options that you might want to consider? I think, ladies and gentlemen, when the final chapter on this incident is written, and it may be years before we get the entire thing, I think we're going to find out that it was a very scary moment on the world stage. And I continue to be very afraid because we don't have a president who's up to the task of leading the nation under situations like he's simply not up to the task. For political purposes, Democrats are keeping in office a man who is not up to the task of being the president of the United States. You know it, and I know it, and Vladimir Putin knows it, and so does anybody else on the world stage who's paying attention. He's just not up to the task. 21 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Well, listen, if it's that time of year where you go out and you crank up the AC, but all of a sudden you realize it's not getting cold, I need some help. Well, that's what you should do is dial this number, 775-7833. That's the number to Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. They'll come right over. They'll take care of whatever is wrong with your system, get it back up and running. And if you have reached the point where it's time to think about a replacement system, you're not going to find any better deal than you'll find at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. You might want to consider becoming a member of the Beehive Club. $99 is where that starts. You get 3 thorough maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling at 775-7833, online at busybeehvac.com.
Vladimir Putin speaks on attempted rebellion, some new voting districts being drawn up in Louisiana, and 3 Texas police officers facing murder charges. Those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 25 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair on the air on this Monday, June 26th. Glad you're with us. Got so much going on. I found a story today which, again, I think, don't want to get too deep into the polls, but when you see a trend developing, I think it's important to note the trend. And there's 2 things out of this particular story, which comes from, of all places, NBC News, that I think are very interesting. First of all, let's talk about what's going on with the GOP bid for the presidency. And, we've said to you many, many times that Donald Trump is the front runner in virtually every poll. Well, I haven't seen a poll where he's not. In many cases, he's 30, 35 points ahead of Ron DeSantis. So here is NBC News' take on what they have seen based on their new polling data. Here we go. President Donald Trump has increased his lead in the national GOP horse race since his federal indictment in the classified documents probe. And yet the other crucial part of that equation is how Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' standing has declined at the same time. In the new poll, Trump gets support from 51% of Republican primary voters, while DeSantis gets a 22. So 51, 22, that's that's like 32 points, 33 points. It's really, I can't add and do this. So I had one.
29. That'd be 29. Yeah.
20. That's exactly what it says. 29. Thank you. I can't add, subtract, try to talk at the same time. Anyway, so there's 29. That's a hell of a lead by Trump over DeSantis. And then there's another piece of data out of this story, which I think is pretty interesting, which has to do with where Kamala Harris is. This is shocking. This is pretty surprising. The number of the day, says NBC News, is 32%. That's the share of registered voters in a new NBC and News poll that say they have a positive view of Vice President Kamala Harris. That's compared with 49% who have a negative view of her, including 39% who have a very negative view of her. Her net negative rating, minus 17. Are you ready? Listen to this carefully. I'm about to dump some wisdom on you here. She's underwater by 17 points, and according to this story, that is the lowest for any vice president in the history of the poll. In October 2019, Mike Pence was at a 34% positive, 38% negative, minus 4. Joe Biden's rating when he was vice president was positive 34, negative 33, so minus 1. Dick Cheney was 47% positive, 24% negative. That was a plus 23. But I'm telling you, that is minus 17. Holy moly. It's never, no vice president has ever had, in the history of this poll, has had a worse number. Interesting that the more adversity that you stack onto Donald Trump, the stronger his numbers become. And his opponents lose out on that. I mean, a bad day for Donald Trump is not necessarily a bad day for Donald Trump. The news may be bad, but I mean, ultimately, the support tends to strengthen. It tends to go up. People are more certain of their choice of Donald Trump as the person that they want to vote for, and they're ready to walk away from other people like Ron DeSantis. And then on the Democrat side of the equation, what a mess Democrats have themselves in right now. I mean, the only prediction that I have made is that I honestly do not believe Joe Biden will be the Democrat nominee. Now, how that all falls apart, I can't predict you. There's about maybe 10 different scenarios where that could happen. I don't think that Joe Biden becomes the nominee. But one thing that I'm certain is that America is telling the pollsters in every poll that I've seen is they sure as heck do not want Kamala Harris. So I don't know how they solve their problems, but pay close attention. 30 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
Thirty minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Sun this week. Triple-digit temperatures coming up later on this week. Right now, 91 degrees on Music Row. Traffic and weather coming up. Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed his country, telling the Russian people an attempted rebellion by the mercenary Wagner Group has been suppressed and that it was orchestrated by traitors and influenced by those supporting Ukraine. But as Ian Pinnell reports, the world has still caught a glimpse of the Russian leader's weakest moment to date.
He accused Kyiv, Ukraine, and the West of trying to undermine Russia, that they wanted to see Russians firing on each other and wanted to sow chaos inside the country. So I think this is Vladimir Putin trying to show that, look, he is in charge and that everything is okay, there's nothing to see here. But of course, the reality is nobody's going to forget.
It was a pre-recorded video statement that Putin released, and he also thanked the people for their endurance, solidarity, and patriotism during the ordeal. Right now in Louisiana, a case against congressional redistricting because it dilutes the black voting power can now move forward now that the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled in Alabama. Alabama's redistricting maps were struck down because the high court agreed with a lower court, which argued the black vote was being diluted. In both states, black voters are a majority in just one congressional district. And in Texas, 3 San Antonio police officers facing murder charges after shooting and killing a woman, Melissa Perez, who was allegedly having a mental health crisis in her own home. Here's DeMarco Morgan with details.
Officers seen chasing Perez as she runs back into her apartment after authorities arrived on the scene.
You're gonna get shot!
Shoot me! You're not gonna work!
They say that's when Perez threw a candlestick, then grabbed a hammer.
Hey, what's up?
One officer opening fire, and when Perez appears to move towards the door, all 3 fire.
And that is the latest news, weather, and traffic coming up next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, let me talk about the folks over at Eurofix. Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you, oh, that thing will be ready at 4 p.m., and then you get there at 4 p.m. and you find out it's not ready. I mean, people get really tired of that kind of stuff. If you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, why don't you come to Eurofix? Because Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix has your vehicle ready when it's really supposed to be ready, so you're not standing around and waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer and without dealer pricing. You see, that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of the dealership's overhead, and that's quite a bit of money. So why would you want to pay for all that? At Eurofix, reliable also means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. And if you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable. Eurofix, family owned for some 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. It is 37 minutes now past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and we're so glad to have you in on this Monday. A lot of things happening in the world, a lot of things going on around the country, and we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of all of it. I just wanted to say, Chris, good to see you on Saturday at the big shindig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know, Matt, that's Mac. I know some things came up at the last minute you weren't able to attend.
I know. I really wish I could have been there. I heard it was a really fun time, though.
We had a good time. The pool water was very refreshing, and the
perfect.
And the margarita machine, at least half of it worked the way it was supposed to work. That was pretty good.
They were good. Yes.
Yeah, so it was good.
And then more food than you could shake a couple of sticks at.
Well, and that is the hallmark of a Wilson party.
Yep.
Well, I should say a Cabana wife party, because she does all the work. I just show up and shake hands, kiss babies, that kind of stuff. You know what? Speaking of media stuff, there was a big announcement from the folks at Fox News today. I don't know if you've heard this or not. They have apparently decided what their primetime lineup is going to be following the departure of Tucker Carlson. They've been experimenting over there at the Fox News channel. A bunch of different people got a chance to go in and try to sort of try out in prime time. But they've made some changes, and it looks like to me what they've done is they've gone with that which is comfortable and familiar to them. So here we have it. I'll break it out for you right now. Fox News Channel, according to Fox News, will debut a new primetime lineup on July 17th. Fox News Media CEO Suzanne Scott said on Monday. Here we go. The Ingram Angle, which normally runs late at night, will kick things off at 7 p.m. Eastern, so that for those of us here in Middle Tennessee, that'd be 6 p.m. So she's moving from late night to a much earlier time slot, replacing Jesse Waters. Jesse Waters shifts to 8 p.m. Eastern. That'd be 7 p.m. Standard Time. Hannity remains at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central. And Gutfeld will begin now at 10 p.m. They're moving Gutfeld's show up an hour. And so that's the way it's all going to happen. So, they're going with people they know, people who have, done very well with them in the past. But will this actually salvage the relationship with the audience? Many people very upset when Fox News decided they're going to get rid of Tucker Carlson. And even though they continue to pay him, he's not working. He's doing that, doing a thing on Twitter, I suppose, that every once in a while. I bet he shows up tonight, because this is a night where the news cycle is something he feels pretty passionately about. But there's all kinds of fighting going on between them. I don't know how that's going to play out. So the lineup again: Ingram Angle will be at 6 o'clock our time. Is that right, Jose? I got the Ingram Angle will be at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 o'clock our time. Jesse Waters' primetime shifts to 7 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Middle Tennessee time. Hannity will, I'm getting these numbers all jumbled up. Hannity will remain at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. our time. Gutfeld coming in at 9 o'clock. I don't know. How do you feel? How do you feel about that lineup? I feel like they've gone with what is safe. It'll be interesting to see whether or not they can recoup the numbers that they lost. Because when you lose someone like Tucker Carlson, who was at the top of his game, his numbers were what they call the tent pole in the business, higher numbers than anybody else. Then it's going to be really hard to see how that all plays out in the long term. But they did have one little bit of good news in their ratings, in that their ratings had fallen. At times they were not number one in prime time, but in the most recent weeks, they have returned to being number one at prime time. Not as high a number one as they once were, but a number one nonetheless. I like all these guys pretty much. I don't have a lot of. I never hung around with Jesse Waters all that much. He sort of came up behind me at Fox News. Greg Gutfeld was there, but working a much different shift. Sean Hannity, of course, is someone that I consider, that I know fairly well, and he's always been very reliable, of course, in that time slot. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out in the days ahead. It is now, let's call it 43 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, let's talk about EverSeal. What is EverSeal? Well, first of all, it's a sealant for your concrete and your wood. And the idea here is that it's actually been used in industrial applications for many, 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 many years. And the folks at EverSeal figured out how to take this product and apply it and for use in your home when it comes to wood and concrete applications. And now here's the thing. You come in and they do a deep cleaning. They go through the wood, the concrete. They try to make it look as good as it possibly can. And then they have their patented seal added to it, which absorbs all the way through, becomes a permanent part of the wood and concrete, and will prevent any further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. 30 to 50 years. Wow. That's something. Got a 25-year warranty. So think about all the money you would save. You do it one time and you're done. Just think about, for example, your wood deck. If you had to seal your wood deck, and many people do it every year. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. That adds up over time, right? Why not just do it one time and be done with it and start to use your deck, to use your exterior spaces instead of having to, work on them each and every year before you can go out there. Save you a lot of money. Sound like something you'd be interested in know more about? Why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson and the team over at EverSeal? It is 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Vladimir Putin addresses the public for the first time since the attempted military coup. 2 inmates in Tennessee escaped the Henry County Sheriff's Office, and a mass shooter pleads guilty today. That and more coming up at 4. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 49 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and we're glad to have you here on this Monday, the 26th day of June. We've been trying to, make sense of something that was, it's very difficult to make sense of as to, really what was going on starting Saturday as a paramilitary group known as the Wagner Group, which is a sort of a mercenary group, decided that they would leave their position to the east of Ukraine and then start a drive toward Moscow. In what appeared to be like, were they trying to overthrow the government of Russia? And this is, of course, a very dicey situation when you consider the world stage right now. I mean, you got the Wagner Group apparently getting ready to take on Vladimir Putin there for a moment or two and making a move on Moscow. We in the United States are in a proxy war with Russia in Ukraine, so our relationship is not the best. Very difficult in this kind of situation to try to bring clarity as to what's going on. I mean, you've got military movements. Is it a coup? Is the United States supporting this? Is the United States not supporting this? You're Vladimir Putin. You've got nuclear weapons. You're up against the wall. You're already about paranoid and maybe not particularly well. We got our own president who, at times struggles to keep a grasp on reality, what is real and what is not. So scary in a situation like that. And so it takes a few days to figure out what was really going on there. This is why you need diplomats. This is why you need people who can pick up the phone and another diplomat answers the phone and that there's some relationship there. This is why you need to have military to military contacts. I mean, our relationship in that regard with Russia, of course, is strained. Because, we're in a proxy war with Russia. And so, you're struggling around trying to find out, what is truth and what is right and what is real and what is wrong, what is really happening here and who's really behind it. All of these things are very unclear. And you're talking about two countries that are being led by one man who's a paranoid and not well, and the other led by a man who barely has a functioning understanding of what's going on in the world around him. The words that we heard a few moments ago from Vladimir Putin indicate that they seem to understand that this was an attempt at taking over the country by the Wagner Group, and the leader of that group is a guy named Yevgeny Prigozhin. And now here's what Vladimir Putin has said in the last few hours, which perhaps brings a little clarity as to at least how they are looking at the situation. Vladimir Putin called the organizers of the attempted mutiny over the weekend criminals and said his military would have crushed the uprising. The president's comments were his first since the aborted mutiny of the Wagner Group, mercenaries who marched on Moscow over the weekend. Wagner Group leader Yevgeny Prigozhin it was the person that they were looking at. So Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Monday organizers of an armed mutiny would be brought to justice, and he said they would have prevailed. This is a criminal activity which is aimed at weakening the country. This was a colossal threat, Putin said in a televised address to the nation. In exchange for his turning back, a criminal case against Prigozhin was dropped, and he was permitted to leave Russia for Belarus. As of Monday afternoon, Prigozhin is believed to be staying at a hotel in Minsk that did not have any windows, according to Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Mutiny took the world by surprise and catapulted a taboo question to center stage about Russia, whether Russia's grip on power might not be as ironclad internally as it appears from the outside. On Monday, Putin said any armed rebellion would have been put down anyway. So he's looking at this as an attempt to take over power from him, and he's not looking at it particularly as the United States having involvement, in which we have said very clearly we did not. So, I'm telling you, in an environment like this, we're in war with Russia through a proxy, Ukraine. You've got this Wagner Group, which is a paramilitary mercenary group, answers to no one, and then you've got the Russian military, and so there's a lot of distrust there on the diplomatic and military levels. I just think we really dodged a bullet here, and somehow we were able to get some clarity on some levels as to who was in charge of what and who was doing what to whom. And at the end of the day, it does appear that it was nothing more than a coup attempt. Let's not something to say lightly. It was a coup attempt against Russia. And that's the way they are interpreting it at this time. So we'll continue to watch that throughout the day. As I said, the developments are coming by the minute, by the hour here. And again, there were a great many hours over the weekend where there wasn't great clarity about what was going on. All right, so let's take a look, if we could, now and see what's going on with our markets. The Dow Jones Industrials are down 12. The S&P is down 19. NASDAQ is down 156 points. So all of the screens are in the red. Standing by over at Beacon Capital Management is John Maxon. John, I guess in a situation like this, with so much uncertainty on the world stage, they can't help but have some impact on the market numbers.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's true, Brian. The market doesn't like uncertainty, and certainly a large amount of geopolitical uncertainty and some of the negative impact that could have happened in Russia over the weekend could have had a bigger impact on the market. Seems to be fairly muted right now, in addition to the Fed taking a pretty hawkish stance on future interest rate hikes. The turmoil in Russia could have really could have been a lot worse today. I think what I'm going to be looking for this week is where is the market and where is the investor relative to growth. Not a lot of investor reports out today, but tomorrow we're going to get a gauge on the consumer in the U.S. as the consumer confidence report comes out, and in the wake of the weekend, it'll be interesting to see how confident the consumer is.
All right, thank you, John Max. And by the way, you can learn about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. That's askbeaconnow.com. It is 57 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Let me tell you about the Nashville Armory Ranges. 2 locations for your convenience. The Nashville Armory is at 4290 Kenilworth Drive in Nashville. Over 15,000 square feet, which combines retail, classrooms, and, of course, pistol and rifle-rated ranges, so you can learn to become proficient and then stay that way. Second location, it's the Franklin Range at 390 South Winds Drive. There you'll find 10 state-of-the-art shooting ranges equipped with automated target control, custom shooting stalls that provide a virtually private shooting experience. You see, and the folks that work there, well, they're just top-notch across the board. They pride themselves on hiring folks who have expertise to advise even the most experienced shooter. But they also have the patience to guide those who are new to the 2A world. No attitude, no pressure. Gunsmithing is back at the Nashville Range. If you're buying your first gun or adding to the collection, you'll find a wide selection of new and pre-owned firearms, suppressors, optics, apparel, shooting accessories. It's the place to buy. It's the place to train. It's the place to learn to become a pretty good shot. To learn more, why don't you go to their website, armoryranges.com. That's armoryranges.com. And please let them know your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson sent you.
4 o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories, 91, and boy, that's just the beginning. This week's going to start out dry and sweltering like it is now. It'll end wet and steamy with the chance for storms on Thursday and Friday to go along with possible triple-digit temperatures. Complete weather forecast and the latest traffic report coming up just a few minutes. It's been a slow but bloody beginning to the Ukrainian counteroffensive as their soldiers try to push the Russian invaders out of their homeland. Patrick Reevell in Ukraine and tells us where the move stands right now.
I think mainly one of the significant things that it does show, and from the videos that the Russians themselves are releasing, is how few positions the Russians seem to have on that bank right up against the river. And they say that's because of the flooding that was caused by the explosion of the Kakhovka Dam earlier this month, which caused that devastating flooding, but also did flood out many of the Russian positions on that area.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin released a pre-recorded video statement on the attempted military rebellion against the country, condemning Kyiv in the West and thanking his people for their patriotism during the ordeal. Crime in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that 2 inmates were able to escape the Henry County Sheriff's Office. Ronnie Sharp and Josh Harris allegedly fled through a skylight on the roof and are now believed to have stolen a 2006 Chevy 3500 four-door truck. Harris, 40 years old, Sharp, 48 years old, and police believe these 2 men to be dangerous. The Colorado Springs Club Q mass shooter whose rampage left 5 dead and at least 19 injured at an LGBTQ nightclub, sentenced today to thousands of years in prison. Here's Dave Packer.
Family members spared a long and possibly painful trial. Anderson Lee Aldrich sentenced on the same day as a guilty plea with 5 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole for the murders at the Colorado Springs nightclub. Aldrich will also receive 46 consecutive 48-year sentences for the attempted murder counts, followed by mandatory periods of parole. Judge Michael McMaster telling Aldrich, "Your actions reflect the deepest malice of the human heart." Jessica Fierro, whose daughter's boyfriend was killed, telling Aldrich, "The devil awaits with open arms."
Got a flight to catch next month. 5G technology is set to get switched on early next month, but some domestic airlines might not make a deadline to refit their airplanes in time. July 1st is the deadline, and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says that there could be delays or cancellations as a result. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. We're glad you're here with us on this Monday. Got a lot of stuff going on. We're getting ready to head into the sort of one of the big travel times of the year, the 4th of July travel weekend. And there's some interesting stuff that predicts just how big it's going to be. People are traveling in a big way once again, it would appear. Record-breaking travel predicted for Tennesseans on the 4th of July, writes Fox 17. You ready for this? AAA predicts now more than 1 million Tennesseans will take at least one trip of 50 miles or more between Friday, June 30th, and Tuesday, July 4th. With this prediction, there will be 42,000 more holiday travelers than the record high set last year. Nationally, people traveling for the holidays weekend expected to set new records as well. An estimated 50.7 million Americans are predicted to travel for the holiday weekend, which is 2.1 million more than last year. Wow, that's a lot. So what are you going to be facing out there? Well, airfares and hotel rates are going to be more expensive than they were last year, according to the Vice President of Travel for AAA, Debbie Hayes. So expect to see congested roads, busy hotels, long lines at airports and attractions. And I would say it seems that each of the big travel days that we've had here in the last year or so have also had big problems at airports around the country. You know, they've run into all kinds of delay and computer hiccups and that kind of stuff. So unless they have gotten a handle on that, it would behoove you to plan for perhaps things not going as smoothly as they possibly could go. More than 968,000 people in Tennessee expected to take a road trip this 4th of July weekend. That'd be 27,000 more than last year. And so here's a little bit of a chart that sort of helps you understand how, well, they say the 4th of July weekend, generally nowadays when you get ready for a big weekend, used to be a getaway Friday. Now it's generally a getaway Thursday. People are leaving for these trips a lot earlier than they once did. 50,000 Tennesseans expected to fly this year, 200 more people than the previous year set in 2001. So just get ready for a very busy travel time. If you're traveling on the interstate, in the state of Tennessee, the new Bucky's is open down in Sevierville.
Oh, boy.
There you go. Bring me some. Did I? Well, he's not there now. He's not in the newsroom. I saw Mac Morey was wearing a Bucky's T-shirt.
Yeah, that's right. He does have his Bucky shirt. I don't know if that was, in commemoration of the opening of the new one or not.
I don't know. The Texas-based country store and gas station opened its largest location in Sevierville on June 26th at 6 a.m. It will be the largest travel center in the world until Texas takes back that record when they construct one in Luling, Texas. And then I think the next one after that will be the one in Clarksville.
That will be even bigger, right?
Be even bigger than that,
yeah.
Right. So 74,000 square feet in Sevierville. That's really quite something.
And it will be full for quite some time, I'm sure.
Yeah. You know what
chaos.
I think? What I think, I've had my Bucky's experience every time I've gone. If I go by one, I pretty much stop just because I want to see what it's all about.
Yeah.
What's it all about, Bucky's? That's what I want to know. And so I have gone there. There he is. There he is wearing his Bucky's T-shirt. He's returning to the newsroom now. He heard us talking about him. So you got your Bucky's T-shirt on.
Oh, yeah. Got a rep.
Yeah.
Love Bucky's.
It's something else, isn't it? Now, where did you get that particular T-shirt?
This one was on the way to Florida, so I think it was before Florida, because they have them there, too, but I believe it was Georgia, right? They have them in Georgia?
Yeah, so
they got them everywhere.
It was probably in, let's see, where's the one in Georgia? Like in south of Macon, I think.
I will say it's an overwhelming experience the first time if you're not prepared.
Yeah.
First of all, the first thing you notice is that how many gas pumps they have. It's just like an unbelievable number.
Gosh.
And then you got to understand that none of these gas pumps are for trucks. That's the one thing about Bucky's.
No
they don't
truckers
allow
allowed.
the big truckers.
Yep.
I mean, if you got a pickup truck, you can get in there. But I'm talking about a big semi truck. It's not a truck stop. It's not that at all. They don't even allow them there. This is strictly a place designed for people on the highway who, want to get off the road for a little bit. So now here's what I'm thinking is the brilliance of the Bucky strategy. I think they realize that, if we go forward, and sometimes I think we are going to go forward with it. Sometimes I think we'll come back to our senses on it. But if you buy into the whole idea that eventually Americans will be driving electric cars, what do they need? Okay, well, they need a place where they can pull in and do a fast charge, and that takes about 30 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
I would say you're not getting in and out of a Bucky's in less than 30 minutes. If you go put your car on charge.
That's a good point.
And then go, get a little something to drink, stretch, and go to the bathroom. You do some knocking around, you shop around, you find some entry, and you maybe even get something to eat while you're there. I think that they're planning for the future, and that they realize that there's going to be a need for something like this when most of the cars, that we're driving on the highway, if it comes to that, are going to be electric.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah, because
it's a good take.
30 minutes is nothing. And you can kill 30 minutes easy in a Bucky's.
Oh, yeah.
It's real easy.
Oh,
whether you want to or not a lot of times.
I could spend 30 minutes just looking over their fudge selection because that's the thing.
Immaculate.
I just stand there watching them chopping all that brisket up, and then they start yelling, and, everybody joins in. It just looks delicious to me, and it is delicious.
It's very good.
Yeah.
I do think it's funny you mentioned all the gas pumps. I just want to hear someone go in there and say, "Hey, could I get 20 on 430, please?" It's like
pump
what?
number 430. That's right.
Exactly.
I've never seen anything quite like it. Well, we're going to be. This is the future, and I think that what they're doing is each place, it will be bigger and bigger. Every time they build one, they're trying to make it bigger than the last one. And so we're talking about laying out the real estate. For maybe their ultimate plan doesn't come to fruition for 10 years, but they're going to have all the locations, they're going to have all the space, they're going to have, and they will have built up a loyalty. I think that's the long term. That's the long-term evil Bucky's plan.
Playing the
for
long
world
game,
domination. That's right.
The evil beaver.
Well, I mean, you've got to obviously. What have we said? You don't have the Chargers. And you've got to, nobody wants to stop and waste 30 minutes recharging a car when you can fill up a car in 5 minutes.
That's right.
Nobody wants to waste that time. But if you got a Bucky's,
makes a big difference.
Yeah,
I'll say this.
So.
But I have one complaint about Bucky's, though. I've noticed this. They sell a lot of food. Right, and of course they're known for their brisket, but they sell a lot of other food. But there's nowhere for you to sit and eat the food at Bucky's. They don't have a single table inside or outside of their establishment.
They want you to get back in your car and get on the road.
Yeah, so I've had to, and you get one of their brisket sandwiches or something. I mean, you can't eat that in the car. So I've had to, kind of sit on the curb in the parking lot and eat before.
Really?
So I would say Bucky's. But just put some picnic tables maybe outside. Or something.
No, they don't
want people hanging around. I guess
they don't want you hanging around any longer than you have to.
If you're not spending money, they don't want you.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. Well, that's an interesting idea. I don't know.
Maybe onto something.
I think that's their long-term game. I really do. Couple of other stories that have to do with what's going on in Tennessee politics. We're a lot of talk about a special session. How much would that cost taxpayers? A special legislative session, Governor Lee says he will call late this summer, will cost taxpayers $124,000, about $125,000 in expenses for lawmakers. And it's still on. I mean, we talked to Cameron Sexton the other day, and he made it very clear that even though he doesn't think that the governor's going to get the legislation, the red flag law that he wants, he says there are other things that can be done, and he expects that the August 21st special session will go forward. So there you have it. Lee announced the special session less than 2 hours after lawmakers adjourned in April without taking up his proposal to keep guns out of the hands of people deemed a danger to themselves or others. $32,892 a day is what it costs to have a special session. I don't know. I just think we could wait till January. Look, Maybe I just don't have a good sense of it. My sense of it is the governor's not going to get the bill that he wants. The other measures, I don't think, are all that particularly pressing. We're not going to have any information at all that comes out with regard to what's in the manifesto, which would drive so much of what might happen in the state legislature. I don't know. I just say save the money, push off till next January, and then take it on then. But that's just me. There's a new law that's going into effect to protect Tennesseans from unwanted text messages. Woohoo, we're all in favor of this, right? It goes into effect July 1. The law will prohibit calls from individuals or companies trying to sell consumer goods and services by telephone. Telephone solicitors may still contact in response to an express invitation or permission by the person being contacted, which means, when you look at something and it says, do you accept all of our terms? Don't accept all their terms or you're going to get a phone call. But solicitors may contact on behalf of not-for-profit organizations if it's made from a specific non-for-profit organization. Soliciting is allowed if the person or entity making the call or text has had a business relationship with the person being contacted. But consumers who have registered their phone numbers with Tennessee Do Not Call list will automatically be covered under the plan. To register for the Do Not, here's what you really need to know, right? Do not call /text, click. There's a link to it. I'll find that link and put it up on our website. But there's a way to go about putting your phone and registering it. And then, if you tell them, I don't want you to call me back anymore, that's supposed to have some teeth.
For a little while, anyway.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you, it's like I get maybe 10 of these a day. Either a text message from somebody who wants to sell me something, or some kind of phone call wanting to sell me a product, or a loan. I don't know why I get those, but I get all these kinds. That's what I'm getting all the time, and I'm done with it. I mean, I don't answer them. At some point, you think they would give up, but they never give up.
No,
they never, ever, ever give up. All right, so there's that. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's going to be a whole bunch of laws that are going to be coming into effect on July 1. They seem like that's sort of the target date for new laws after a state legislature meets. And we'll go through those as the week continues. By the way, do you remember this story about the Davidson County sheriff when they were building the new sheriff's office over here in the new jail? And there was this guy named Alex Friedman, who's now serving 40 years in prison, who apparently was putting weapons in the walls and guns and weaponry and armory and all this kinds of stuff in the walls, before the thing was actually occupied. And they caught him at it, and they were actually able to recover, I think, 21 firearms, assault rifles, handguns, shotguns, a 37 millimeter launcher from inside some containers that had been built into the building. Well, apparently there's still every once in a while they got all the stuff they think is lethal, but every once in a while they find other elements that were not caught in the original raid and in the original search, and these are things like, for example, uniforms. I guess officers found uniforms and an insole with the handcuff keys in a non-secure location of the detention center. Also, there were like $100 bills. So as if you could get out, you had a uniform to wear, you had a key to unlock your handcuffs, and you had $100 to take you down the highway a little bit. Still finding stuff like that even now, and that was several years ago. Wow, 2019. What a deal. 20 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Vladimir Putin has just now made his first statements on the attempted military rebellion. Internet access has just now been expanded by President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. And we'll also have today's money news. Those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's 25 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair. How you doing on this Monday? That's right. It's after had a pretty good weekend. I mean, Saturday was nice, and Sunday, well, there were some thunder showers and a few things around, but it's not a bad weekend. And I haven't looked at the forecast. We looking okay this week?
Gonna be hot.
Hot.
Well, like in the 90s hot?
Maybe in the hundreds hot later this week.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Are you kidding me, really?
I'm serious.
That's dirty talk right there.
I know.
Well, why in the world I can't get this to work? I don't know.
But we've been blessed, though, I guess, so far.
Yeah, we really haven't had, the weather's been pretty good. And so now I can get to it. I'm checking out all my high-tech weather stuff here. I don't know. 95, 98 on Friday. Woo.
Gosh. Warm.
93 on Thursday, 95 on Saturday. And then it gets back into the 80s.
Yeah, it looks like it kind of, after this weekend, it kind of goes back to normal, I think.
Yeah, such as normal is. Bud Light. We've all been talking about the Bud Light situation and how after the Dylan Mulvaney thing, which turned out that they have lost a tremendous amount of business share as a result of that, and now they're beginning to make some predictions. They're two. I never imagined I'd become this much of an expert on beer ratings, but apparently there are two things you look at very closely when it comes to beer sales. One is Memorial Day, which is like the unofficial start of summer. And they say people, go out, and that may be the first time. A lot of people have beer all the time, but some people buy beer for special occasions, parties, barbecues, the whole 9 yards, right? So they said, that the one to look at was Memorial Day, and then the next one to look at is the upcoming 4th of July holiday. People go out and they'll have big celebrations, and they'll usually have a cooler full of beer. But now they're beginning to be able to make some projections about how long this thing could last for Bud Light, and it's not good. Some of Bud Light's problems could be permanent, according to an analyst in a new note about the beleaguered brand in the wake of the boycott. We believe recent underperformance implies a permanent reduction in Anheuser-Busch's U.S. businesses. Dutch Bank analyst Mitch Collett wrote for Barron's. Our proprietary survey data suggests that these headwinds are likely to fade even if we do not expect the U.S. business to fully recover. So they're thinking they lose about a fourth of their business, 25% of their business overall, permanently. I mean, that hurts. I mean, you're a perfectly fine brand, and then the next thing you know, you've lost about 25% of your share. The data shows that 21% of consumers are buying more, while 37% are buying the same amount, according to some reports. So there are some people who are looking at it and say, well, I'm going to support Bud. I'm going to go out and buy Bud because I don't have a problem with what they did. But overall, the end result is about a 25% permanent loss for Anheuser-Busch as a result of a marketing decision. Wow. That's a serious hit. Since its ill-fated promotional exercise with Mulvaney, a transgender TikTok influence, Bud Light has seen its weekly sales decline since early April, according to data from Bump Williams Consulting and Nielsen IQ. And sometimes it's been around 26.8%, but they believe that when it all shakes out, when all is said and done, the decision to partner with Dylan Mulvaney will have cost them 25% of their whole product line. 25% market value gone. I'm telling you right now, in America today, if you're a marketing manager, if you're doing marketing for any kind of company, you are now I guarantee you there are conversations being had in boardrooms all across America. What is our plan? What are we promoting? How are we going about it? Let's make sure that we go in there and make these decisions with our eyes wide open. 30 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk.
Thirty minutes after the hour of 4 o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top story. Sunny and hot this week. It's going to get possibly up to the triple-digit temperatures on Thursday and Friday as we also welcome some storms, possibly those last couple of days of the week. Full weather forecast, latest traffic coming up. Russian President Putin broadcasted a short statement about the attempted military revolt by the Wagner Group mercenaries his country hired to fight in Ukraine. Andy Field.
Vladimir Putin telling his nation that those who supported the attempted rebellion wanted Russia to lose the war in Ukraine, but Putin did not announce any sanctions against those forces that led the mutiny. He gave those who took part a number of options, saying they could sign a new contract with Russia's defense ministry, keep fighting, or return to their families, or go to Belarus. It's not clear what will happen to the Wagner Group leader who led that failed weekend attack.
Some new legislation. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have announced a $40 billion investment that'll help expand internet access, increase affordability, and make internet connectivity more reliable across the country. The money will come from the bipartisan infrastructure law. According to the FCC broadband availability map, there are currently an estimated 8.5 million locations, or about 7% of the country, that isn't connected to the internet. The administration anticipates final approval of the state's plans for the project around spring of 2025. And over to some money news. Here's Daria Albinger.
Stocks drifted after hitting a major roadblock last week. The Dow fell 13 points. The Nasdaq tumbled 157 and the S&P gave up 20. Trading was relatively quiet as investors around the world mostly shrugged off the weekend's short-lived armed rebellion in Russia. Crude prices were steady, unlike the first days of Russia's invasion of Ukraine when they skyrocketed. Many small businesses rely on Amazon to boost their business. Well, now Amazon wants them to help with deliveries. The e-commerce giant announcing a program called Amazon Hub Delivery. It would pay small business owners to deliver packages during the last mile of delivery to customers' doorstops. Starbucks Workers United says thousands of workers will continue to walk off the job this week. They're protesting reports that some Starbucks stores banned LGBTQ plus pride displays this year. The company says that isn't the case.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville, a proud sponsor of the drive, and we're so glad to have them as one of our lead sponsors. They got a thing called a 1776 Patriot Special. In honor of the upcoming Independence Day holidays, Wellness Institute of Nashville, Dr. Kevin Mitchell, Dr. Ashley Mitchell, want to offer all their patients and conservatives a special. Your first appointment, $17.76. Includes a consultation, x-rays if you need them, or you can bring in an x-ray or an MRI report. They'll go over it, come up with a healing plan, a healing strategy for you, if you will. And I'm telling you, that's when things start to get interesting. And by the way, if you mention your favorite host, that's what they will give you an additional 10% off future services. Well, why not just mention my name? How can you go wrong? Going to save you some money. Look, if you've been having pain in your arms, legs, back, neck, if you've been looking for something to try to make it all better, why don't you start by doing this? Call them at this number, 615-246-5009. Sorry, 5009. 615-246-5009. Set up your appointment and begin the whole process. I'm telling you, good people, and they will take good care of you. I've gone through a lot of treatment over there, and it has helped me a tremendous amount. Let them help you as well. 615-246-5009. Learn more by going to their website, painisbad.com. "38 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, your friend and radio buddy, and we are bringing you news you can use, all kinds of stuff. There is a pretty good chance, it would seem to me, the way things are stacking up right now, that the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, may be, he might be in, I don't want to say impeachment or at least censured. Yeah, here we go. Email contradicts Garland on Hunter Biden probe as impeachment talk heats up. Let me read from, I've got several different versions of this. Let me read from the Breitbart story and see if we can make sense of all this. It is House Speaker Kevin McCarthy on Sunday signaled that an impeachment inquiry of Attorney General Merrick Garland would be imminent if whistleblower allegations that the U.S. Attorney for the District of Delaware, David Weiss, wanted to appoint a special counsel in the Department of Justice's Hunter Biden probe are true. McCarthy retweeted allegations made by the whistleblower, IRS Criminal Supervisory Special Agent Gary A. Shapley, noting that if his allegations were true, there would be a significant part of a larger impeachment inquiry into Merrick Garland's weaponization of the DOJ. All right. So this all has come in. Here is Merrick Garland. This is what he has said repeatedly.
As I said from the moment of my appointment as Attorney General, I would leave this matter in the hands of the United States Attorney, who was appointed by the previous president and assigned to this matter by the previous administration, that he would be given full authority to decide the matter as he decided was appropriate. And that's what he's done. And if you have any further questions about that matter, you should direct them to the U.S. Attorney to explain his decision.
So I didn't have anything to. No, I was hands off on all of this. Well, here's from the Epic Times. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy talking of impeaching Attorney General Merrick Garland as a new email contradicts Garland's testimony regarding the Hunter Biden investigation. U.S. Attorney David Weiss, as you just heard, brought several tax charges against Hunter Biden, President Joe Biden's son, resulting in Hunter Biden admitting guilt. But Weiss told top officials during a meeting in 2022 that he was not the person making decisions about whether the charges would be filed, and that the requests for charges to be brought in Washington and California were rejected, IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley has alleged in his testimony. I think I have that right here. Let's see. Garland, Weiss had control. I'm trying to find the soundbite of Shapley, but I mean, he did say that. There's no doubt about it. Here is more of Garland saying that Weiss was the person who had all the control. I had no control.
Mr. Weiss, who was appointed by President Trump as the U.S. Attorney in Delaware and assigned this matter during the previous administration, would be permitted to continue his investigation and to make a decision to prosecute any way in which he wanted to and in any district in which he wanted to. Mr. Weiss has since sent a letter to the House Judiciary Committee confirming that he had that authority. I don't know how it would be possible for anybody to block him from bringing a prosecution, given that he has this authority.
All right, so there you have it. You got the Attorney General saying, I gave him all authority, and then you got Weiss saying, I didn't have the authority, and Shapley coming up and bringing an email saying, no, I was told repeatedly that Weiss did not have the authority, was not the final say-so. Listen, this thing is getting to heat up pretty good here. It's getting to be a very interesting a story that just gets a little deeper each and every day. But now we are seriously talking about an impeachment inquiry aimed at the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, over things that he has apparently said that others are now contradicting as being completely untrue. Let's just, we all know what was going on here. The fix was in. If you're in the Department of Justice and you're investigating somebody that has an R after their name or whose last name happens to be Trump, man, things just snap along. They just happen so quickly. There's no hesitation. There's boom, boom, boom. Get on it. Get on it now. If you're in the Department of Justice and you happen to be charged with the responsibility of investigating someone whose last name is Biden or has a D after their name, oh well, you've got years. Things can, you can wait so long that the statute of limitations will run out on some of this stuff. They'll take their slow time. It's very clear to anybody who's paying attention to what's going on here that there is a double standard at play at the Department of Justice. And that they really have it in for anybody whose last name is Trump. And if your name is Biden, you're going to be given every break in the book. They're going to bend over backwards to find ways to help you out. It's quite concerning. And I think, look, let's take advantage of it. Let's go after Merrick Garland. Let's go ahead and impeach the guy and see how it goes. If you lay out a pretty good case, I don't know what would happen, but over in the Senate, probably not much, but nonetheless, lay out what you got. Lay out the best stuff here, and let's let it all go. So that's the latest development in this whole thing with regard to Hunter Biden's laptop, Hunter Biden's, pleading guilty on tax charges and that kind of stuff. It's not going anywhere fast. It was a light slap on the wrist if at that. And now, as we get more information in place, it becomes very clear that Garland had his thumb on the scale, it would appear. And he would claim, oh, well, Weiss has got full authority, but then Weiss really, when it came down to it, Weiss was told, no, you don't have full authority. You can't do this. I'm telling you, stay tuned. This thing's going to get really, really good. Let's see what else we got here in the garden. Who is lying? This is from Jonathan Turley. Merrick Garland or the whistleblowers? I'm not the deciding official. Those 5 words, allegedly from the Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, shocked IRS and FBI investigators at a meeting on October 22nd of 2022. That is because in refusing to appoint a special counsel, Attorney General Garland, Merrick Garland, has repeatedly assured the public and Congress that Weiss had total authority over his investigation. But now IRS Supervisory Agent Gary A. Shapley told Congress he was so dismayed by Weiss's statement and other admissions that he memorialized them in a communications to other team members. Shapley and another whistleblower detail what they describe as a pattern of interference with their investigation of Hunter Biden, including the denial of searches, lines of questioning, even attempted indictments. The only thing abundantly clear is that someone is lying. Either these whistleblowers are lying to Congress or these Justice Department officials, including Garland, are lying. The response from both Hunter Biden's counsel and the Attorney General only deepens the concerns. I mean, we told you there's one thing where we have this email. I'm sorry, it was a text message, a WhatsApp text message, in which Hunter Biden alleges that he's sitting there with his dad, and he's sending this to a Chinese communist official, and he's saying, okay, we want you to do whatever you promised to do, and if you don't do it, we're not going to be very happy. And then he went on to say, and my dad and I are sitting right here waiting for your phone call. One of the folks at the FBI said, you know, what we wanted to do was we wanted to look up their phone records to find out where that phone was at that given that moment that the text message was sent. Because if both Biden and Hunter Biden, President Biden and Hunter Biden were in the same room at the time, well, then that would show that there really was some control, that then Vice President Biden had some control over the business activities that Hunter Biden had knowledge of them and control. And when he said, yeah, well, let's look up the GPS coordinates, we can figure that out. Were they in the same room? Because that would send to back up that what the text message said was accurate. And they said, no, we're not going to do that. Well, right there is an indication that they don't want to know certain answers to certain questions. Watch it very closely. Going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. McCarthy says it looks like we might have to impeach the Attorney General of the United States. 48 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Grace Point Healthcare delivers medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing. You'll know how much it will cost before the care is actually delivered. They have smart care plans for just $69 a month. You get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And because they treat the entire family, even newborns, they have family plans as well. Now, you marry that with a high-deductible insurance plan, could save you and your family hundreds of dollars. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible. It is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin. Or call this number, 599-6868. It's 599-6868 to schedule a visit.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
Vladimir Putin dealing with the pressure, busy holiday travel, a weight loss pill with side effects, and a lucky lottery winner in Tennessee. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 55 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk. We may get some answers tomorrow from the highest court in the land with regard to the current president's plan to give debt forgiveness on student loans. I mean, I don't know anybody who understands the law who thinks that the president of the United States had the authority to do that. It was even said by the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, that Joe Biden could not, pay off student loan debt without going back to Congress and getting some kind of legislation passed to that effect. Had to go back to Congress. And so, this has been sort of, for a long time now, they've said, well, if you have a payment because of COVID and all that, you don't have to pay it back right now. They've said you can push it back. We're going to give you a break on that. But now the question becomes, what will actually happen? Can the president write off all of this amazing student loan debt? And the high court is not thought to be going to be able to support the president on that. And because we now know, a lot of these cases have already come down, we know which cases are left. So tomorrow could be the big day on that. And I expect that what's going to happen is that you're going to have a pretty strong decision, 5-4, 6-3 maybe, in which the president of the United States is disabused of the notion that he can do this, that he can just write off student loan debt. It was never a good policy. It was never the right policy. It was something that angered, I think, more people than it actually helped out. I know that, for me, my personal feeling about it was, well, what a fool I was, huh? I actually saved for my daughter's college education. What I needed to do was just, hold on, and just rack up a bunch of federal debt and then have the president forgive it all. Look, I think Biden in his heart knew he didn't have the authority to do it. I think this was really crass political gamesmanship in its worst way, because what they were trying to do, I think, was try to get young people to come on board about the time the midterm elections were happening. Yeah, I know we haven't done everything we said, but we're gonna take care of you on these student loans. And they made a promise that he couldn't keep. He knew he couldn't keep. But he also got a lot of support from some of those younger voters in the midterm elections. So he lied, I would say, to them in hopes that it would help them politically. Again, crass political maneuvering by this Biden administration. It is now 58 minutes past the hour, 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. So how are you faring in these rough and tumble markets that we're in? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understands it can be a little scary, but here's the thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are, help you make any mid-course corrections that might be needed. I mean, wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on the right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance. It starts with a simple phone call. The experts at Beacon will take it from there. I mean, what do you have to lose except for all the worry? So call this number, 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest easy knowing you have a plan that meets all your retirement goals. Replace the worry with the confidence that you're on the right path, that all the T's have been crossed, all the I's have been dotted. 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at beaconcm.com.
It is 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. It's going to be a hot, sweltering week here. Currently 90 degrees on Music Row. The chance to hit 100 comes later this week, Thursday and Friday. Chance for storms those days as well. Complete weather forecast, latest traffic report upcoming in 5 minutes. President Biden has been receiving hour-by-hour updates on the short-lived armed rebellion in Russia as questions grow about what happens next and its impact on the war in Ukraine. Faith Abube at the White House.
The President's National Security Council spokesperson John Kirby tells ABC News it's too soon to know what impact the armed revolt in Russia over the weekend will have on the war in Ukraine, but the United States continues to closely monitor the situation.
It's too early to speculate on the impact these events might have or to reach any definitive conclusions, except one, of course, and that is that no matter what happens next, we're going to stay closely coordinated with those allies and partners.
Kirby reiterated that the U.S. support for Ukraine remains strong.
And Putin, in his pre-recorded video statement, condemned Kyiv, Ukraine, and the West, claiming that they wanted to see Russians kill each other. A busy holiday weekend coming up. Fox 17 says that AAA is predicting more than 1 million Tennesseans are going to take a trip of at least 50 miles over the 4th of July holiday weekend. And this prediction would mean the record high of holiday travelers at around 42,000 more people than last year. An estimated 50 million Americans are predicted to travel for the holiday weekend. That's 2 million more than last year. And this Friday expected to be the busiest day for driving, with average travel times estimated to be around 30% longer than they usually are. And a new study showing that drugs used for type 2 diabetes and for losing weight could soon be available in pill form, not just injections as they're mostly given now. Here's Sherry Preston.
It's no secret that drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy have become extremely popular as people use them for both controlling type 2 diabetes and obesity. ABC Chief Medical Correspondent Dr. Jennifer Ashton on how effective Rybelsus, the pill form of Ozempic, is at weight loss, according to a study funded by the maker of the drug.
In adults without type 2 diabetes who were overweight and obese, it lowered their body mass index by 15% compared to just over 2% with placebo.
The pill form, presumably much easier for most people to take. Physicians say, as with anything, ask your doctor if you have questions.
In Tennessee, there are a number of new laws set to take effect Saturday, July 1st. One of those, the Jabari Bailey Highway Safety Act. This would increase penalties for people who don't move out of the way of law enforcement vehicles on roadsides. And that's going to be any stationary vehicle that has its flashing light hazard lights activated, including civilian, maintenance, emergency, or law enforcement vehicles. And again, that starts Saturday. Local lottery winnings. A player in Lebanon won $50,000 on Saturday night's Powerball drawing. It was purchased at a gas station with 4 out of the 5 white balls matching and the red Powerball. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's 7 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk. We're about halfway through our program, bringing you news and information that you can use so that we give you all that you need to sit down with the family and try to make sense of the world. And I'm telling you, it's increasingly difficult to do so. The events of this weekend are shocking. Let's just sort of recap where we are on the world stage, and I'll tell you why this concerns me so much. We're talking about having our president of the United States is not functioning at full capacity. Let's just agree on that. We can all agree he's not there mentally. He is missing a step. Hardly, I can't think of a time where he's gone out on the world stage and not had some kind of glaring gaffe. Sometimes he just stumbles and falls flat on his face. Other times he just says things that don't make any sense. And it's against that backdrop that we have, what we got going on in the world. Right now, the United States is in a proxy war with Russia. The Russians don't like us. We're not. They don't like us one whit right now, because we are supporting the Ukrainians with the military intelligence and military equipment, and has given them a good run for their money as Putin tries to go in and take over Ukraine, and the United States is making that difficult. So they got no love for us. They got no love for what's going on with Ukraine right now, where they're getting their butts kicked. So there's that. And then you add to the mixture a guy who runs a mercenary organization that apparently decided they were going to make a run on Moscow this weekend. That's right. They pulled out and they started making a run and headed for the streets of Moscow and what appeared to be some kind of coup attempt. These are all very dangerous things when you consider that, we're talking about the United States and Russia, two countries that have an awful lot of nuclear weapons, where misunderstandings can occur even in the best of situations, and these are not the best of situations. I worry deeply about the things we might get into because of a misunderstanding. Because our president, be honest with you, he's not up to the task. Do you have any confidence that this man has his finger on our nuclear football? Do you have any confidence that he is really, truly in control of what's going on and able to make good decisions, good, sound decisions in short matter of time when seconds count? I do not have that confidence, not at all. And so, it's amazing. We haven't until probably around 1 or 2 o'clock this afternoon, we really didn't have a good grip on exactly what had happened. A lot of stuff was going on. All right, so to bring you up to speed, you've got great concern. Here is his name is Matthew Miller, State Department spokesman, talking about how the events of the last 36, 48 hours, well, they've been just a little different.
This certainly was a new moment if you think of the events of the last few years. As the secretary said, 16 months ago, the Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin envisioned that Russian forces would be taking Kyiv. And instead, over the weekend, we saw Russian forces taking a Russian Ministry of Defense office inside a Russian city. We saw the entire pretext of this war being questioned openly, something we have done, something our allies and partners have done, something that you have not seen inside the borders of Russia. In fact, you can be thrown in jail for taking that step as an ordinary citizen inside of Russia. We saw Yevgeny Prigozhin directly questioning not just the Ministry of Defense officials, as he's done for some time, but really directly challenging President Putin's leadership. Those are all significant steps and a significant change from what we've seen, certainly in the last 16 months, but over a number of years. What that means going forward, we don't know.
But has Vladimir Putin, as you know him and as this administration knows him, tolerated this kind of insubordination, whether in the immediate future or long term? Would he tolerate this kind of challenge to his authority?
I would not ever want to speculate on how Vladimir Putin might respond to any event, certainly not an event inside Russia.
On the diplomatic efforts that were made over the weekend, Did Russians respond to those messages from U.S. diplomats, Ambassador Tracy, and the others?
I won't speak to the Russian response. I'll just speak to the messages that we delivered to them.
I'm not asking you to characterize them. I'm just asking you to say yes or no.
Well, it was a conversation. It wasn't a one-way. There were one-way conversations where you deliver and the other side hangs up. It was a conversation, yes.
Okay. And then one thing that the Secretary said over the weekend is that to the extent that Russia is now distracted by what's happening internally in its country, that could create an additional advantage for the Ukrainians. How exactly is the United States encouraging the Ukrainians to take advantage of this moment?
So I would say that I would frame it slightly differently. We continue to supply the Ukrainians with the equipment they need to conduct the counteroffensive and to defend themselves long term. We continue to have intelligence sharing channels with the Ukrainians. We continue to have military channels. We continue to have diplomatic channels that are open with Ukraine. What the Secretary was speaking to is the fact that you did see what Wagner forces withdraw from Ukraine and instead move on a Russian city. How that shakes out, what happens in the coming days with respect to Wagner forces or other Russian military forces, I don't think we can say, but certainly we are in close consultation with Ukraine and the Ukrainian military about the ongoing counteroffensive.
Wow. So much to try to unwrap there. And of course, when this was all going down, we were really curious as to what was going on with the Russian nukes because we didn't know whether the Russians thought that we were behind some of all this. So we were watching very closely to see what their nuclear position would be, and here's an answer to that question.
I won't speak to any inferences. I will say that I will let the Pentagon speak to any military-to-military communications, whether it happened or not. I will say, however, as the Secretary said yesterday, we do not see any change in the disposition of Russian nuclear forces and have not changed the disposition of ours.
So that's good news. They apparently, figured out very quickly that they didn't want to tangle with us on that regard. And so that was a good outcome there. Now, John Kirby in the White House briefing room earlier today says that what the United States will now focus on going forward is just continuing to support our Ukrainian forces as we have. Controversial in this country, no doubt, but we're going to continue to focus on that going forward.
We're all concerned by any potential for instability in Russia, given the stakes and given what's going on in Ukraine. And I'm not going to talk about intelligence matters one way or the other here. The rift between Mr. Prigozhin and the Wagner Group and the Russian Ministry of Defense was playing out in public for all of you to see. The tensions, the frustrations, the anger, the accusations, all played out publicly. That was no secret whatsoever. Now, what that tension does inside Russia, again, that's an internal Russian matter. What we've got to do is not get distracted by that and make sure that we're focused on supporting Ukraine.
I want to follow up on.
There you go. We're just going to support Ukraine and let them work out whatever they got going on over there. But do you not see my larger point here? That in such an unstable environment, I think, and that's an understatement of it, where we have a third-party mercenary group known as the Wagner Group decides to take action in a way that challenges the leadership of Russia. And they turn their troops and they head toward Russia, and only after a certain amount of time, when they realize it wasn't going to be successful, or maybe they were looking for somebody to be, stand behind them, and that support did not come. I don't know. One way or the other, though, in a situation like that, when you're talking about a nuclear country with a paranoid president, and in that particular case, I'm talking about Putin. He's not well. He's thought to be paranoid, and really does think that people are out to get him, and because they probably are people out to get him. Maybe it's not paranoia. As the old saying, it's not paranoia if there really are people out to get you. Well, there probably are people out to get him, and he knows this. And he's got to wonder, are my military people going to jump behind the Wagner Group? Is that what did not materialize? One way or the other, it's in an entirely incredibly unstable situation and involving two countries that have a lot of nuclear weapons and two leaders who are not at the top of their game. It's scary. Scary how this thing could have unfolded in the days, and we may not be through the worst of it yet. So what happened today was that we did hear a statement from Putin. Now, this is, this begins to suggest that things are returning as much as any of this can be considered normal, back to some kind of normalcy. Russian President Vladimir Putin thanked the nation on Monday for unity after an armed rebellion over the weekend was aborted less than 24 hours after it began. Earlier in the day, the mercenary chief defended his short-lived insurrection in a boastful statement. In his first appearance since the rebellion ended, Putin thanked most of the mercenaries for not letting the situation deteriorate into bloodshed. He said all necessary measures have been taken to protect the country and the people from rebellion. He blamed Russia's enemies and said they miscalculated. The Kremlin also tried to project stability on Monday when authorities released a video of Russia's defense minister reviewing troops in Ukraine. Yevgeny Prigozhin is the head of the mercenary group called Wagner Group. He said he wasn't seeking to stage a coup, but was acting to prevent the destruction of Wagner, his private military company. We started our march because of an injustice, he said in an 11-minute statement, giving no details about where he was or what his plans were. The feud between the Wagner Group leader and Russia's military brass has festered throughout the war, erupting into a mutiny over the weekend when mercenaries left Ukraine to seize a military headquarters in a southern Russian city. They rolled seemingly unopposed for hundreds of miles toward Moscow before turning around after less than 24 hours on Saturday. The Kremlin said it made a deal for Prigozhin to move to Belarus and receive amnesty along with his soldiers. There was no confirmation of his whereabouts Monday, although a popular Russian news channel on Telegram reported that it was at a hotel in the Belarusian capital of Minsk. So that's where he is. It would appear that that they wanted to downplay that, although I would say it's probably not over. Probably not over. Scary times we live in when you have a leader of our country who literally should not be in charge of the nuclear football. Democrats, you have to understand, for purely political purposes, they have continued to prop this old man up because they believe that somehow in their minds, they believe he's their best chance to win in 2024. And so they continue to prop this old man up and stand by him, even though he's not up to the task of being the president of the United States. But they won't take that action, no, because that might mess up their politics. Folks, I think that the United States of America was put in a very dicey situation this past weekend that could have gone horribly wrong simply because the Democrats have come to the conclusion that they believe that Joe Biden is the man that has the best chance against Donald Trump. That's really what it boils down to. Scary, scary times we live in with a president who can't put a sentence together on one side of the equation. On the other side of the equation, a man who is, looking over his shoulder every moment, assuming that there are people out to hurt him because, well, there probably are people out to hurt him. It's in this backdrop that we are playing a very high stakes game of poker with countries that have a lot of nuclear weapons. 21 minutes now past the hour, 5 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me tell you about the folks over at Genesis. The clock is ticking on Genesis Diamond's amazing finance offer. You have until 6 p.m. Saturday, that's 6 p.m. Saturday, to take advantage of the hottest offer of the summer. 5 years, 0% interest financing. I mean, get in now and splurge. Maybe treat yourself. Planning to propose? Get that stunning designer engagement ring starting as low as $67 a month. or a 3-carat lab-grown center diamond, just $99 a month. People have driven for hours to take advantage of this, so don't put it off another minute. Buy that pre-owned Rolex or that designer ring or just a simple diamond pendant. Get the incredible price Genesis is famous for, then spread your payments out over 5 years. 0.0% interest. It is just insane. It's the smartest, easiest, and best way to buy. Nothing down, no interest for 5 years, but hurry. This incredible offer ends on Saturday and will not be extended. Only at Genesis Diamonds. So on approved credit, you need to see the store for details on that.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says the attempted rebellion against his country was orchestrated by traitors. New York City having discussions on environmental concerns, pizza being one of them, and a tragic death at B&A. I'll have details at 5:30. I'm Mac Morey right here, Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Well, they have made an announcement over at Fox News about who's going to be in charge of their primetime lineup starting on the 17th. Is that the right 17th of July? So I guess they'll have enough time to rebuild some paint and rebuild some sets and put some paint on the walls and change a few things. But the more it's like Meet the New Boss, same as the old boss. Remember that old song? It's sort of what you got here. This is from thehill.com. 5 takeaways from Fox News Primetime Shuffle. Jesse Waters sees his star rise further at Fox. He got his start on Fox's 8 p.m. hour as a correspondent for the Bill O'Reilly program back in the day. He will be taking over Tucker Carlson's Primetime Hour. That gives him the keys to what has in recent years ranked as the network's most watched evening hour. He was ousted, as you know, by the network last month and has since launched a version of his popular Fox program on Twitter. Waters was granted his own show at 7 p.m. last January and has reaped ratings success for Fox, consistently beating out other cable channels in that time slot. So there you go. Jesse Waters gets a 8 o'clock, when we say 8 o'clock prime time, that's 8 o'clock Eastern time. They always speak in Eastern time. I don't know why. So that'd be 7 o'clock our time. Okay, got that. Gutfeld will take his shtick to prime time. And, you know, there's a guy I never would have imagined in a million years would be one of the highest rated talents over at Fox News, but he has been by, applying the world of humor to politics. He's found a niche there, doing quite well. One of the rising talents for the last few months, now getting his chance to bring his flair for comedy to prime time. The network launched his late-night comedy program at 11 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 o'clock our time. And the conservative pundit responded by beating the late-night shows on the major broadcast networks for several weeks running. So there you go. He moves to 10 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Central from his 11 o'clock slot. And then that one, well, how they fell out the other 2 hours. Well, Sean Hannity and Laura Ingraham are a couple of longest-serving hosts, and Hannity stays in his 9 o'clock slot. Laura Ingraham moves up to take that earlier slot that Waters is given up in order to move to prime time. So there you have it. It all takes place in just a few days here. I guess July 17th is when this is all supposed to happen. But it is sort of an interesting change. It's like they have gone and they've decided at Fox they always like to grow their own, and I think that's what they've done here. Jesse Waters started with Bill O'Reilly, went on to find some success on his own, found success on the 5, found success in his own primetime show. So he's going to get a real opportunity to take that show, and they'll hand him plenty of budget to do that with. So he won't be lacking for budget there. Although the real question is how long they got to do all of this and also pay off Tucker Carlson at the same time, because they're still paying Tucker Carlson even though he's not on the channel. They still pay him, and therefore making the case that he doesn't have the right to show up somewhere else. He has shown up on Twitter. I think he'll continue to show up at Twitter from time to time. Maybe I wouldn't be surprised that tonight would be a pretty good guess that he'll do something given the topic of what's going on in the world around us right now. So there you have it. Big changes over at the Fox News channel, effective the 17th of July. It is now 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
"30 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 90 degrees, and it's going to be a blisteringly hot week here in Middle Tennessee. 100-degree temperatures possible later on this week, as well as some storms Thursday and Friday. We'll keep you updated with the latest forecast and traffic report coming up. Russian President Vladimir Putin has addressed his country, telling the Russian people an attempted rebellion by the mercenary Wagner Group has been suppressed and that it was orchestrated by traitors and influenced by those supporting Ukraine. But as Ian Pinnell reports, the world has still caught a glimpse of the Russian leader's weakest moment to date.
He accused Kyiv, Ukraine, and the West of trying to undermine Russia, that they wanted to see Russians firing on each other and wanted to sow chaos inside the country. So I think this is Vladimir Putin trying to show that, look, he is in charge and that everything is okay, there's nothing to see here. But, of course, the reality is nobody's going to forget.
Putin released pre-recorded video statement thanking the people for their endurance, solidarity, and patriotism during the ordeal. And in New York City, they're taking aim at coal and wood-fired pizzas due to environmental concerns. Derek Dennis.
Taking a bite out of coal and wood-fired pizzas, New York City looking to eat away at the popular way of making a pie. New rules would require pizzerias with those piping hot ovens installed prior to May 2016 by emission-controlled devices to cut carbon emissions and other particles by up to 75%. The proposal is an extension of a 2015 law approved by former Mayor Bill de Blasio, who was widely mocked after being pictured pictured eating a pizza slice with a knife and fork and not by hand. Customers wonder if the new rules were to take effect, would their coal and wood-fired pizza slices taste the same?
Right now in Tennessee, a person died at B&A Airport yesterday morning after what's being described as a, quote, unfortunate accident. A 30-year-old man from Kentucky allegedly jumped from the 6th floor of the parking garage to his death. Police say they were speaking to him when he turned away and ran and then jumped. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 36 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. A couple of things here that I've run across in regard to the polls. You know, I know we talk about polls from time to time. People say, it's still early. It is early. And you don't look at polls as being much other than an opportunity to look at trends. I think the folks at Real Clear Politics do a pretty good job of this. They take all the polls, average them together. And what they've found over time is they come up pretty close. You take a poll that's high, maybe you take a poll that's low, but by the time you get to doing all of the adjusting and take the average of polls, then you find it's often it's pretty close. And then the other thing is it can give you some guidance as to the trend. I always think the trends are what you look for. People who say, I don't pay any attention to polls. No, look, you should pay attention to polls, but you shouldn't pay too much attention to polls. Look and see where the trend is, and is the trend consistent among several polls? Then you generally sense that probably you're onto something, right? NBC News, take it as for what it's worth. They got a new poll out that says that Trump gets support from 51% of Republican primary voters, while DeSantis gets 22%, followed by former Vice President Mike Pence at 7%, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie at 5%, and former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley at 4%. But what is interesting about their look at the numbers and their take on the numbers is that, every time you hit Donald Trump, his lead goes up. Yes, the headline from our new NBC News poll is how former President Donald Trump has increased his lead in the national GOP horse race since his federal indictment in the classified documents probe. Yet the other crucial part of the equation is how Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' standing has declined during that same period of time. You would expect it to be something other than that, but that's not what happens. And I've this is what I've said about Trump. You hit him and you hit him and you hit him and you hit him, and it doesn't do any good. But the more you hit him, the stronger he becomes.
If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
That's right. I mean, really, honestly, the word, throw all the bad news you want at the guy. He comes out of the thing smelling pretty good. His numbers go up. And his opponent's numbers go down.
This is the way.
This is the way.
That just amuses. That's just for me. All right, so there's that. So Trump's numbers, he gets indicted, his numbers go up, and simultaneously it seems to be coming from the Ron DeSantis polls, and he's losing share. Right now, I've looked up here it is, national GOP. It doesn't mean anything because we don't elect presidents that way. We elect presidents through the Electoral College, but it does tell you a trend. It gives you a sense of a trend, all right? So right now, Trump leads DeSantis in the NBC poll, 29 points. Emerson poll, Trump leads DeSantis 38 points. Yahoo News, Trump leads DeSantis 24 points. CNN, Trump leads DeSantis 21 points. This one's just, talk about an outlier. This is really out there. A Harvard-Harris poll has Trump leading DeSantis by 45 points. Whew. So when you take all these, these numbers are all over the place, but if you add them all up and then divide them and get an average, it comes out about Trump leading on anywhere around 30 points over DeSantis. No, and the strategy has been to just go out there and hammer DeSantis and to go against his record, and then if you beat up on Trump, it doesn't seem to hurt him. It only makes him stronger. Makes him stronger as he goes forward. All right, so now that's one part of it. The other part that I thought was really interesting in all of this is this number 32. All right, listen to this. That's the share of registered voters in a new NBC News poll who say they have a positive view of Vice President Kamala Harris. 32% of Americans say they have a positive view of Vice President Kamala Harris, compared with 49% who have a negative view of her, including 39% who have a very negative view of her. That's heavily weighted toward those who have a very negative view of her. Harris's net negative rating, she's 17 points underwater in a positive versus negative. How do you feel about her? I like her, I dislike her. She's underwater by 17 points. Listen to this. That's the lowest for any vice president in the history of NBC taking these poll numbers. October 2019, Mike Pence had a 34% positive rate and a 38% negative. He was underwater by 4. Joe Biden in December of 2010 was underwater by, he was above water by 1. Dick Cheney in May of 2003 was above water significantly. Al Gore's rating in the poll was up 15. So vice presidents, by and large, generally do better than the president, except in the case of Kamala Harris, where she has numbers that are a tremendous amount lower than Biden's numbers. Let's take a look at it very quickly, because they do some polling here that gives you some idea of what would happen in a race where Biden is not the here it is. Trump Harris. If that election were to happen in a general election, if it was Trump versus Harris, Trump would win by 3.2 points. If it was Biden versus Trump, it would be a dead even tie, according to the average of polls. So there you have it. DeSantis goes against Biden in the average of polls. Biden would win by 1. So there you go. There you have it. Not great numbers for Kamala Harris, which makes me come back to my theory about what will happen here. I don't know exactly how it will unveil itself. I don't know exactly how this will happen. There's just too many scenarios out there to pick one. But I just believe that as Americans look at Joe Biden, and he continues to stumble and bumble on the stage, he continues to make mistakes every time there's a microphone, I think this continues to weigh, and people come to the conclusion that he's not the guy that I could ever vote for. And as more and more people come to that realization, Democrats have to ask themselves, well, then who is our plan B? Is it Kamala? Look, I don't think Biden makes it to the nomination process. I just don't think ultimately he will be the nominee. Now, who they go for and how it all unfolds, I can't begin to even tell you that. But I'm just certain of one thing, and that is, at some point, the Democrats will come to understand that Biden is looking so bad on the world stage and making so many mistakes and saying so many stupid things that they can't defend him anymore, and they don't think that people will actually, when it comes down to it, vote for him. So what is their plan B? Is it Kamala? Well, apparently not, because, she's only one of the only politicians in America has lower numbers than Joe Biden does. Wow. All right, what else we got here in the way of these numbers? I can give you some national GOP polls. I told you, right on average, Trump leads for the Republican nominee by 30 points. If we look at Iowa, Trump leads in Iowa by 21 points over DeSantis, 21 points on average. If we look at New Hampshire, Trump leads by, pulling the numbers up now, leads by about 21 points over DeSantis, but there's not a great deal of polling that's out there that's all that solid yet. And then when you look at the Biden numbers, right now he's the choice because he's the only choice out there. Biden on the national level would garner 64% of the vote. Kennedy and Williamson combined would only be about 19% of the vote, about 20% of the vote. So, it's hard to draw any conclusive information from these polls because I think we all realize the situation is so dicey with Biden that it could change literally in a heartbeat. Literally in a heartbeat. It is 47 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. So it's not really diversified. Do they own them? Yeah, they own them, but they almost have no money in them. So when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. It's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.
A Ukraine counteroffensive and Putin speaking to his people for the first time since a attempted military rebellion. 2 inmates escape in Tennessee and plan to build more access to high-speed internet in the U.S. from President Biden. Plus, a legend with the Predators is here to help, but in a different position. I'll have details at 6. I'm Mac Morey here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 53 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. We talk about, how woke equals broke. And, we had a story a little earlier, really quite shocking. The Bud Light thing is, boy, I'm telling you, if there's ever an object lesson in being really careful about your marketing and making sure your marketing is well thought out so that it actually, the idea of marketing in most places is, well, we're going to try to sell more product. That's the goal of marketing and advertising, is to sell more product. But if you don't get it right and you get it wrong, it can have the opposite impact, as we saw with the Dylan Mulvaney thing. The new story out about Bud is that Anheuser-Busch may lose permanently. They now project 25% of its total net value. That's the long-term damage, about a quarter of its value gone as a result of that. And then, you say, well, how have others fared? Well, let's look at Disney for a moment. Walt Disney Company lost almost $1 billion in a release of a spate of movies that have woke elements to them, according to some who've looked at it. So let me see if I got these numbers correct here. It's pretty shocking. Here are the movies that are in question. Lightyear, Thor, Love and Thunder, Strange World, Black Panther, and Wakanda Forever, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and The Little Mermaid. Let's see, Strange World lost $197 billion. Of the 8 movies, it cost them, Disney, $2.75 billion to make those movies. All right, so 2.7, let's just call it 2.8 billion to make them. And they brought in only about 1.8 billion. So they lost almost $1 billion. It actually comes to about $890 million that they lost on all these movies. Now, in most companies that do movies, and they put them in the theaters, and then that's it. Then they go on, they cut deals later with other companies, like, well, put it on the streaming platform here, or the streaming platform here will buy it, and they'll run it for a while. But that's not the way it works at Disney. Virtually everything that Disney makes then goes on a Disney platform for streaming. Disney, so now that these movies have gone to the theater, have not done well, lost $1 billion over what it cost to make those movies. You put them on the streaming platforms, they're still not going to do well because you have the same problem. And so, you take what I'm saying basically is 900 million is not really the true depth of how much they will have lost in all of this. So not only do we need to consider how much money Disney has lost at the box office, you need to consider how much money Disney has lost in economic opportunity cost, says one Hollywood analyst. You see, that's how much money they could have made had they actually taken these films and licensed them, to say, to Netflix or Amazon Prime, or done something like, what Universal does, which is a split. If Disney had just taken a Universal type deal, they would have had a lot more money in their pocket, but they've chosen to keep it all at home and to support Disney and Disney Plus. And so they're not going to be making money on that way either. The losses will continue to pile up. All this to say, boy, I'm telling you, if you're a marketing manager in a major company in America and you're not stopping to think about your marketing strategy and what you're doing, then you're not very bright, because the American people are speaking with their pocketbook. It is 57 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock on Super Talk.
It's 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories, and it's going to be hot, hot, hot this week. Triple digits possible later on. We'll have the latest traffic report plus the weather forecast coming up. It's been a slow but bloody beginning to the Ukrainian counteroffensive as their soldiers try to push the Russian invaders out of their homeland. Patrick Reevil is in Ukraine and tells us where the move stands right now.
I think mainly one of the significant things that it does show, and from the videos that the Russians themselves are releasing, is how few positions the Russians seem to have on that bank right up against the river. And they say that's because of the flooding that was caused by the explosion of the Kakhovka Dam earlier this month, which caused that devastating flooding, but also did flood out many of the Russian positions on that area.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin released a pre-recorded video statement on the attempted military rebellion against the country. He condemned Kyiv and the West, and then he thanked his people for their patriotism during the ordeal. Crime in the Volunteer State. Channel 4 says that 2 inmates were able to escape the Henry County Sheriff's Office. Ronnie Sharp and Joshua Harris allegedly fled through a skylight on the roof. They're now believed to have stolen a 2006 Chevy 3500 four-door truck. Harris, 40 years old, and Sharp, 48 years old, and police believe these 2 men to be dangerous. Some January 6 news. Former President Trump's Secret Service agents have now testified in the January 6 investigation. Andy Field.
Secret Service agents are sworn to protect any president's life, but they do not have to stay silent on a crime they may have seen the chief executive commit. Those agents were before a federal grand jury looking into what, if anything, former President Trump did to encourage or be part of the January 6 attack. It's not known how many agents testified or if they mentioned the former president.
And staying in the nation's capital, President Biden is touting a $40 billion plan to expand high-speed internet access and increase affordability for Americans across the states and its territories. The White House calling the move a once-in-a-generation investment. Faith Abube has more.
The Biden administration's high-speed internet initiative targets rural communities to suburban enclaves where internet service is either non-existent, too slow, or too expensive. According to the president, the $40 billion investment would allow all 50 states, D.C., and territories to aggressively address the issue.
Because for today's economy to work for everyone, internet access is just as important as electricity was, or water, or other basic services.
The White House says the goal is to connect every resident and small business to reliable, affordable, high-speed internet by the year 2030. Faith Abube, ABC News, the White House.
And around 7% of the nation has no access to internet. Nashville Predators news. The Preds' former goaltender Pekka Rinne will become a coach and scout for the organization. He spent last year as an alumni advisor and will now spend his time mainly around up-and-coming goaltenders to decide if they're meant to be in the gold and blue. Rinne is the only player in the franchise's history to have his number retired. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather are next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair for the last hour of our Monday edition, this June 26th. We'll get you home safely, give you some information you can use. You can share some of this information across the table at dinner tonight, and people will say, my, you are certainly well informed. That's what they will say. You don't even have to give me credit. Just ride that, man. Just take it and run with it.
Just don't do it with your mouth full of food. Just
that's right. Yeah.
Wait until in between bites.
Yeah, that's right. Don't talk with your mouth full. That's just gross. Supreme Court. This is where we are. I mean, this is the time of year where there are some big decisions to come down by the Supreme Court. Not that many more days for them to hand down their decisions before they call it quits for the year. Here we go. Supreme Court has thrown out a House Democrats' pursuit of Trump hotel records. The Supreme Court dismissed a dispute on Monday surrounding Democrats' pursuit of government records stemming from the former Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. Brief, unsigned order. Justices tossed out the case after Democrat lawmakers voluntarily dismissed the lawsuit in a lower court, which the Biden administration was defending. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissented from the pack, saying she would have used a different procedural mechanism to throw out the case. The case stemmed from a 2014 agreement with the General Services Administration, which oversees federal real estate, to lease the old post office building in Washington to the Trump Organization for it to operate as a hotel. The hotel operated throughout former President Donald Trump's single term in office, prompting legal and ethical concerns from Democrats who speculated whether people buying rooms were a way to seek influence with the White House. You come to Washington to do some Trump business with the executive branch. Well, be sure you stay at the Trump Hotel. And honestly, that is such a weak argument. That was such a stretch. It always was, but they kept that thing alive forever and ever and ever and ever until finally they realized that dog wasn't going to hunt, and now the High Court has ruled and thrown that matter out. Now tomorrow could be a very big day when it comes to the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land. President Joe Biden's student debt forgiveness plan we'll finally see an end to its month-long limbo in court. I mean, so nobody that I know who's in their right mind looked at what Joe Biden did with regard to paying off student loans and a promise to do so, that he had the authority to do so. He could not do that by executive order. Among those who believed that you could not do that by executive order was the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, who said, no, you have to go through Congress for that. Most everybody that I know who looked at the matter said, no, you got to go to Congress if you want to forgive a debt. You can't do that on your own. So I think that there's sort of a real ugly story behind all this. When did this all come out? Well, it came out before the midterm elections. Joe Biden realized that he needed the support of young people in the midterm elections. And if you looked at the poll numbers at the time, a lot of young people were walking away from Joe Biden, saying they were very disappointed, felt like all kinds of promises had been made during the campaign, but that nothing had been done about the things they cared about. And many of them cared deeply about having, as you might imagine, their student loans, forgiven. I don't want to have to pay that money. It's killing me. Forget the fact that I took out a loan. I don't want to pay that back. And so Biden comes out just before the midterm elections and says, we're going to forgive your student loan debt. I mean, and everybody went, hooray! Okay, they've done it for us. And so then, I think they probably got a lot of support from people who are just about ready to write them off. Young people who are about ready to write them off. All of a sudden now, well, I guess I'll have to support old Joe after all, support the Democrats because they're going to take care of my student loan debt. They knew full well they couldn't do that. He knew full well it was absolutely a crass move because he didn't have the authority to do that. He simply did not have the authority. And most legal experts have long looked askance. I'm looking at this askance. You can't see me unless you're watching on TV. And then you look at it, sort of gave it the side eye because you didn't really believe that they could do it. I think that they did it because they wanted the support of young people in the midterm elections, and I think they got some of that. But they knew full well that they were lying to those people, that they knew full well the high court would never let them do this. So we'll find out who's right and who's wrong about that probably tomorrow. By the way, they have been given a break. They've been told, during all of this, because of COVID-19 and all that, you don't have to pay it back for a while. We'll give you a little forgiveness on that, a little debt forgiveness. You'll have to pay it back, but you don't have to pay it all back, and you get a little break while we're, going through this pandemic stuff. Well, those payments start again in October. And I think that tomorrow the high court will tell the Biden administration in no uncertain terms that you never have the authority to do this. What were you trying to pull? We'll see. Many borrowers are fearful, according to thehill.com, as the conservative supermajority Supreme Court, which could make its decision known as early as Tuesday morning, seemed skeptical of Biden's plan during oral arguments back in February. Too many are living paycheck to paycheck as a result of overwhelming student debt. That is not okay, the Student Debt Crisis Center recently said on Twitter. The justices heard 2 cases against the forgiveness plan, one brought by 2 individual student loan borrowers, another from 6 Republican attorneys general. The justices first decide whether the challengers have standing, meaning do they have the right to sue the government over the plan. The plaintiffs must then pass the bar to even have the case considered, at which point the court will then determine if the government's had the power to implement the proposal. While Democrats have tried to keep an optimistic tone, Biden himself has shown skepticism at the idea the Supreme Court will rule in his favor. I am confident we're on the right side of the law, said Biden. I am not confident about the outcome of the decision as yet. Advocates found a bit of hope on Friday when the court released an 8-1 decision in a case where the 2 Republican states tried to challenge the Biden administration's on immigration policy. The high court ruled against the 2 states, saying they didn't have standing to sue. So that may be their way out of it if they don't want to deal with it. See, generally, the high court does not like to get into to big fights where you have one branch of government against another. And that's what they have here. You got Republicans in the House and Senate saying you can't do that to an executive that's run by Democrats. So we'll see. There was a lot of interest in it. I'll tell you this, there are going to be some people disappointed because when they put up the debt relief website, and it was a 2-minute form, and you were supposed to put your basic information in for that. They had, I forget, 26 million people signed up. Well, of course they did. I mean, what do you got to lose? You take a few minutes, you may get rid of a lot of debt, just by filling out the paperwork. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to get that paid off, but that's, you don't know. It's a good investment. If it takes you 10 minutes to fill out the form, and you might get a lot of debt, just written off. That's a good investment of your time, 26 million people. Look, the Biden administration will do whatever it takes to get people to support the key demographics to support them in an election year, even if it means they'll look you straight in the eye and tell you that they're going to do something that they know that they cannot do. And that's how crass this is. This is how politically vapid the idea is. You're simply saying, well, we think we can do this. There aren't many legal experts who believe you can do this, but you don't care. Because what you really do care about is the short-term benefit of doing so. And in this particular case, the short-term benefit for the Democrats of telling them we're going to do you something that we really know we can't do was that they were going to get support in the midterm elections, which I think it seems pretty clearly the midterm elections turned out a lot more close than many people thought was going to happen. So watch very closely. The highest court in the land has got a couple more days to hand down decisions. I think it'll be Tuesday, and I think again Thursday are the days when the decisions can come down. And one of the ones that I think you're going to be watching very closely, we're going to have some kind of decision on, is whether or not the president has the authority that he thinks he has, that nobody else that I know believes he actually has. It is 17 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. I want to tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville, a proud sponsor of the drive. So glad to have them on board. They have a thing that they want you to know about called a 1776 Patriot Special. In honor of the upcoming Independence Day holiday, the Wellness Institute of Nashville, Dr. Kevin Mitchell, Dr. Ashley Mitchell, want to offer all patriots and conservatives this special deal. Your first appointment is only $17.76. That includes a consultation. They'll take x-rays if you need them, or if you have x-rays, bring them in. Or if you have an MRI report, bring that in as well. And if you mention your favorite host, they will even give you an additional 10% off all future services. So, I mean, all you got to do here is say, I want the 1776 special. And then once you get in for your treatment plan and you have a way and know what you're going to be doing to try to treat your particular problem, then mention my name as your favorite host, because we know that's all true. And they will give you an additional 10% off future services. 615-246-5009. Again, 615-246-5009. Learn more about all the things they can do for you at the Wellness Institute of Nashville by going to their website, painisbad.com. It is 21 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. I'm Brian Wilson, and you're listening to The Drive. So there was an event where the president had to walk past cameras. And he was asked the question that everybody wants to ask him, and which is, we've seen this report that Hunter Biden sent a text message to a guy named Zhang and said that, hey, I'm sitting here with my dad, and we think that you need to give us that thing you promised to give us, or it's not going to go well. And Dad and I are sitting right here by the phone waiting on you to call us, and don't you dare double dog, cross us, because we'll be very upset. Which was, it seemed like it was a shakedown for money is what it appeared about. And so the question is, that many people wondered, Joe Biden has repeatedly said time and time and time again that he is not someone who has ever been involved in his son's his business activities. Here's just a sample.
My business or their business, my sons or daughters. I've never spoken to my son about his overseas business dealings. I have never discussed with my son or my brother or anyone else anything having to do with their businesses, period.
Well, there you go. He says he didn't do it, but now there's all kinds of documents that suggest that maybe he did, and testimony coming from whistleblowers that maybe he did. And so now the question is, where can we get a clean shot where we can get the president on camera in front of a microphone to ask him that question? Well, it happened today, sort of. No, he said, is the answer. And then he just walks away shaking his head. Now, what I notice, this is an all too familiar thing. He's trying to leave the event, and there are cameras in the room, and people know that if the president walks by a camera, somebody's going to shout this question at him. So what do? You play the music very loud. So the city, he goes, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question. I'm sorry. Of course, he's not smart enough to do that. He actually answers the question, said no. But I remember so many times, when I first went to the White House as a reporter for Fox News, it was during the Monica Lewinsky affair, and every time there was an opportunity, we wanted to ask Bill Clinton a question. So they were very good about, you do an event, and you'd be in the room with your camera, and you'd have your microphone there, what they call a little shotgun microphone that can hear sound from a long ways off, and you'd be sitting there, and so they'd say, and God bless the United States of America, and then as if on cue, bam, 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 bam. They'd start the Star Spangled Banners, or they'd start doing all these Sousa marches, and it was loud, and they have it cranked up all the way, and you could never get the question in. And so I was sitting on the island of Guam. Bill Clinton had come into Guam, and I was on the White House, travel pool that day. And we were on the island of Guam. We're going back to the United States, but he's made a stop over in Guam to shake some hands and to say hello to all the Guamians, or the Guamies, whatever they are. And then he was making his way through the governor's sort of, garden that looked down across the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful, beautiful place. And I was sitting there at the end of the row, and here's Bill Clinton making his way down the rope line toward me, but I've got the bam, 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 going in very loud. And I looked over at another person who was there, another reporter, one of those reporters that had like one of those microphones on a stick that they would put way out in front. You see them all the time.
The boom mics.
Yeah. They call it a boom mic, yeah. And so he had one of those, and I said to him, wouldn't it be a shame here if somebody were to unplug that speaker right there? Like somebody with a long boom mic. And so this person said, yeah, that'd be pretty funny. Pop. He reached up over this pole and he pulled the plug out of the speaker. Now it's gone from bam, 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 bam. It's just gone down to nothing. It's gone. It just vanished. It just disappeared because the speaker's been unplugged. You should have seen Bill Clinton scramble. I mean, he was, we were like, whoa, he was so close. And as soon as we did that, he looks over at us and he looks and he realizes, oh, my cover is gone. And he scrambled off the other direction, and we got chewed out by the Secret Service.
Nice try.
Yeah. You do anything you can to try to get those answers. But that's what was going on that particular day. And we did we occasionally, get an answer from him on something? Not very often. when they don't want you to answer any questions, they'll do everything they can. They know they have the game down to a fine art where they can keep the music loud and keep you at a distance from the president of the United States. Some person said, "What's it like being in the travel pool?" And I said, every time I travel with the president of the United States, early on, I mean, very early on, I go wherever I have to go to physically lay eyes on the man. I mean, maybe he's going to give a speech, but I mean, you see him get on the plane, and then you go to the back of the plane, you get on the plane, and then you don't see him again until the end of the day when he comes off the plane. And you may have been covering the president of the United States and not literally laid eyes on the man unless you go out of your way to make sure that you do. I mean, they could keep him from you, and they did all the time. So, especially when they knew that there was that with Fox News, that pesky tall moose of a guy from Fox News was back there, and he's going to ask a question. That guy's going to be trouble. So, after a while, you just sort of, if you had a question you had to ask, you just, gave it your best shot, but you understood you weren't likely to get an answer. And if you didn't have a question that needed to be answered that particular day, maybe you just said, just let them know ahead of time. I got nothing. I don't have anything. Because it just got to be a ridiculous game of running in circles, trying to get the man to say something that he clearly was never going to say. That was the games that they play in that White House briefing room when they don't want to give you information. They got about 10 different things they can do to keep you away from the microphone and the people with the long boom microphones and the people who ask pesky questions. So this is what you're going to be getting a lot of in the days ahead. Yes, God bless America. That's the way it's done in our country. It is now 29 minutes. Let's call it 30 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. You know, when it comes to large home repairs, a lot of times homeowners pretend that they don't see the warning signs because they don't really want to know, well, how expensive is this going to be after all? And it's especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. Well, here's the truth. It could be something big that needs to be fixed, or it could be a small problem that will become a bigger problem if you don't do something about it. So you need to take action now. Or you actually can get some good news now and then that it's not really much to worry about. Bottom line, you don't know, and you certainly don't want to be sold something that you don't need. What you need is peace of mind, and United Structural Systems is the company that will give you that. Thousands and thousands and thousands of satisfied residential customers. And here's how they make that possible. They will come out to your house. They'll give you an assessment of what's going on, tell you what they think should be done. And if you decide to go along with it, you don't pay a penny until the job's done, and you're completely satisfied. And boy, do they have a good reputation. You should listen to some of these glowing reviews. Well, here's one. Excellent experience with the crew. Very professional and knowledgeable about their services. They put me at ease with the whole process, writes Constance. Gloria said, I just want to say hats off to the crew for their hard, excellent work. I am very pleased with the work they did. They did not leave any mess to be cleaned. Actually, you could not even tell they had been there. It's good, hard workers that make me love USS, and I tell everyone about your excellent customer service and work. So there you have it. That comes from Gloria. USS, doing their best to serve Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, and Northern Alabama online at USSTN.com, or call this number. Make a note of it. It's a new number, 615-488-7855. That's 615-488-7855. "37 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Brian Wilson in the chair and on the air. It's Monday, and then we're going to get through this week. And you got next weekend. It kicks off the whole 4th of July thing. A lot of people are going to be traveling. Where are those numbers? I couldn't believe the number of people are going to be traveling. I mean, apparently the idea is that a lot of people are going to take off this time. I guess travel for a while was down post-pandemic, but now it sounds like, they're coming back with a vengeance. Some of these numbers are quite surprising. Record-breaking travel predicted for Tennesseans on the 4th of July. Record-breaking travel volumes expected of the 4th of July in Tennessee and across the nation. AAA predicts that more than 1 million Tennesseans will take at least one trip of 50 miles or more between Friday, June 30th, and Tuesday, July 4th. With this prediction, there will be 42,000 more holiday travelers than the record that was set last year. Wow, that's a big number. An estimated 50.7 million Americans are predicted to travel for the holiday weekend, which is 2.1 million more than last year. Road trips remain the preferred mode of transportation, with nearly 85% of travelers planning to drive to their destinations. So in Tennessee, more than 968,000 people are expected to take a road trip this 4th of July weekend, which would be 27,000 more than last year. I mean, that's not an insignificant number of people. And again, if you had record-breaking numbers last year, and you're shattering them. Below is a chart. Okay, they tell you when to. I think the basic thing that they tell you nowadays is, it used to be, for example, like on Thanksgiving, which is on a Thursday, you want to be out on a Wednesday. Now it's like Monday, Tuesday. People are just leaving so much earlier.
Everyone's got the idea, I think, that we need to leave a day earlier to beat the rush. But the problem is that everybody is kind of thinking that way. And so the rush just happens to happen earlier, I think.
Yeah. I have this thing that I like to do when I can, is actually travel on the actual holiday.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I mean, it's a good strategy. I mean, if you think, okay, I want to be somewhere, place where you want to be on the 4th of July for a big celebration. Maybe it's somewhere where family's located. If you just take the very first flight out early in the morning, you can usually be there by, midday. Now, if you take this, this is pro traveler's trip number 2. If you take travel during the summer, there's always going to be a hang up. Usually it happens in Dallas or Atlanta. But you have these places in the country where they're going to be on any given day in the middle of the summer. There's always the possibility of at least what they call a convective thunder shower. Not a big, not driven by cold fronts. Just it just rains in the afternoon, and once the lightning bolt strikes within 10 miles of the airport, that airport's going to be shut down for a couple hours. I mean, really, they will just take everybody off the flight line. And say, we got to wait till the whatever it is pushes through. Well, if you get one or two airports in the country, big airports that do that, let's say like a Dallas or an Atlanta or some other one, then, you are going to be delayed as the day goes on. So if you get up early and you take the first flight out, like I got a flight coming out, I'm going to be arriving at my destination in the Southwest at like 9:30 in the morning. I'll be there. Okay. And I'm probably going to be there pretty close to being on time. But as you wait later in the day during the summer, there's an increasing chance that you're going to get hung up somewhere, or the plane that was coming to you to pick you up got hung up somewhere. And so, you got to get up and go early. Now, that's the way to do that. I like doing that. But, I think a lot of people are going to be people are back traveling with a vengeance in a huge way. But here we go. Here's speaking of which, if you go to Sevierville, you will see the world's largest Bucky's. It's now open. It's been open since June 26th.
That's today. That was this morning.
Is that? Oh, that's today. Okay, so that's right. That is today, right? Thank you, Chris, very much. So it opened this morning at 6 a.m. It will be the largest travel center in the world until Texas takes back that record when they build their 75,000 square foot location in Luling, Texas. And then I think they take it back. I think Tennessee takes it back again after Clarksville opens, because they're going to do one in Clarksville. It's going to be even bigger.
That's right.
And I mentioned this earlier, and I think I'm right on this. I think I know what the Bucky's evil plan is. and it's not an evil plan. It's actually a smart plan. It's a good business plan. What do we know about transportation in the future? Right? We know that everybody tells us we're going to be driving more and more electric cars. I mean, Ford's trying to tell us that. Chevy's trying to tell us that. All the major automakers are telling us that. The government is telling us that. And so we say, well, okay, how do you make that work practically? You've got to change your business model, because right now the way it works is you drive until you're out of gas. You pull into a gas station. You fill up the tank. It takes you about 15 minutes, and you keep cranking. You go right on down the highway. Well, that's not going to work if you have to pause somewhere for, 25, 35, 45 minutes to recharge your car with a fast charge.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that you can get a fast charge, which is about 80% of the battery's ability, in about 25 to 30 minutes in most cases. I think what Bucky's is doing is they're building up a plan. Right now, there are a lot of gas pumps there. But I think over time, those gas pumps will be slowly changed out with charging stations. And the idea will be, okay, you've got to charge for 35 minutes. Welcome to Bucky's. We got stuff to sell you. And I think that's what it's all about. I think that that's their plan. They will become the business model going forward when people travel and they have electric cars and they got to get them charged. You're all going to show up at your Bucky's, and you're going to, while you're waiting on your car to charge, you spend 35 minutes in a Bucky's. I tell you, every time I've gone to Bucky's, I've spent at least 35 minutes there.
Yeah, same here. I don't even mean to in most cases. It just ends up happening that way.
Yeah.
I was concerned. I will say this. I've been in 3 or 4 Bucky's, I think, at this point. And the first one was last year, actually, I think. And I was concerned when I walked in and I saw ladies, it was several ladies, pushing the shopping carts inside the store. And I'm thinking, where am I?
Yeah. What do you need a shopping cart for? This is a gas station, right?
And then I quickly realized, no, Bucky's is not just a gas station.
No, it's not. It's not. And honestly, for people who say, well, what's it like? I've never been to a Bucky's, what's it like? I don't know that I can really give you a good explanation of what it's like.
It's like no place I've ever been.
No, it's
not. I'll say that. It is an experience.
It's an experience, and I think that's what they're thinking, is that down the line, people will be looking for excuses to kill about 35 minutes, is what it seems like to me. And that seems to me to be also in sync with the idea of having charging stations. So, you may have 300 gas pumps there now, but over time, I bet you in the engineering plan, they have laid the groundwork and all of the electric cabling and all of that stuff to transition those out pretty easily. I bet it's already in there. But I bet it's already built into the system.
It'd be interesting to look at the plans to see what what they did. I was just looking this up while you were talking about it. You mentioning the Sevierville one just opened this morning and holds the world record right now for the largest convenience store. Bucky's also holds a world record for the world's longest car wash. Clocks in at 255 feet of conveyor belt. It's at the Bucky's in Katy, Texas. 255-foot-long car wash. That seems tremendous.
Wow.
I have noticed that their car washes are rather big, long, but I don't think the one I saw was anywhere near this long. But that's a pretty big car wash, 255 feet long.
Wow, yeah, that is something. I'll have to next time when I go, I'll have to check out the said car wash. See, now that's what I would do. Is I would say. Honey, Cabana wife, you go in and you get us some fudge.
Yeah. Maybe a brisket sandwich.
Give me a brisket sandwich, and then I'll go run this thing through that long car wash over there. And so when you come out, you'll have a clean car, and and then we'll keep moving on down the road.
Well, not long, you'll have time to take a nap in it.
I'm telling you, that's right. Anyway, what else we got going on? Special session. Is there going to be a special session for August 21st? That's when Bill Lee says he wants a special session, and he wants to pass legislation that will strengthen public safety and preserve constitutional rights following the shooting at the Covenant School in Nashville. Now, we had the Speaker of the House on the other day, and he says, look, the thing that the governor wants, which is, he says it's not a red flag law, but it's a red flag law, is simply not going to happen. It's the votes are not there. I'm not a whip, but I can count numbers, and so can the people up on the Hill, and they know that the votes are not there for this, so that's not going to happen. And then the Speaker of the House said, but there's some other things we can do. I say when you talk about it costing $124,000 to just have a late summer special session, $32,892 a day. Not a tremendous amount of money when you're talking about, that a lot of people have to be there anyway. But I'm simply saying, why don't we just hold off on that? There's nothing that you're proposing that seems to be so eminently needed or passable that you couldn't do that by just waiting until the next regular session. I don't know. I don't know that we need it. I don't think we need to spend that kind of money. And it seems very clearly to me that what the governor wants is not going to find, it's not going to find favor with the state legislature. Situation you have right now is that so many people said, well, before we could ever consider any kind of that legislation, we would have to have more information about what's in the manifesto, what's in the writers, in the shooters' writings, and they've got a lawsuit right now that doesn't seem like it's going to be resolved maybe even within a year. There are 27 lawyers now involved in this lawsuit, and I've never seen anything with that many lawyers attached to it ever. And with that many lawyers attached to it, and so many different and disparate positions being taken by the people that they represent, I just don't think that we're going to have any kind of final ruling on whether or not we can see what's in those manifesto writings. And unless you have that, I don't know how they're ever going to go forward and pass a piece of legislation that might be helpful or might solve some problem. So, the way it looks to me, we don't really need to have a special session. It's 50 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, if you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltzko are the two guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That's the Stoltzko difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, even a place to live in. Flexibility is the key. They combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They don't scrimp on quality. They don't cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. So just go to their website, stoltzco.com. That's STOLTZCO.com. Tell them that your friend and radio buddy Brian Wilson told you to call, and they'll give you an estimate right over the phone. That number is 615-622-5992. Stoltzco, where the quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. 615-622-5992 or online at stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
Hey folks, Paul Winkler here. One of the things I like to do for investors is educate them, because the more educated I believe that you are as an investor, the more peace of mind you have, the less you worry, and the more successful you're likely to be as an investor. So here goes another education. If we look at a lot of these investment portfolios, like these target date funds out there or portfolios put together by big mutual fund companies, they'll often use something called a total market fund. And you think, wow, I own the whole market in one mutual fund. Matter of fact, there's a really popular video out there on YouTube that says you can get by with just a couple mutual funds and you can be totally diversified. Nothing could be further from the truth. What's going on here is this. One of the things we know as an investor is that you have small companies out there and you have large companies out there. You have growth companies and you have value companies. I taught this in a previous video. We expect more return from small companies than we do large because they have to pay more to use your money historically. Value companies have to pay more to use your money historically as well. Now, what happens with total market funds is they weight based on the size of the company. Well, that would mean that a bigger company would represent more of the portfolio. So graphically, it would look something like this. The fund would look like this. That there's a ton of money in really big companies, and there's almost no money in really small companies in those portfolios. Money in them, so when these do really well, you're not really getting the benefit from it. What we would be better served doing is investing in various areas of the market and holding different types of funds to be more balanced between these areas. That's what academic research shows us, is if we can hold these areas more separately, then we end up with a better risk-return experience. So this is one of the things that we teach people. We like for you to understand this, because the more you understand it, the less you're pulled astray from the investing industry that's typically all about selling you things. Yeah, total market fund, it sounds really good. Not necessarily so great in practice. Now, if you want to find out a little bit more and learn more about investing so that you're a more educated investor, why don't you take us up on a free 15-minute phone call? Go to paulwinkler.com. That's paulwinkler.com. You can set up one in any of our offices, our 10 offices around the Nashville area. There's one near you, most likely. Set that up. Come see us. We love to educate investors. I think you'll be happy you did.